What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day, another episode of the Daily Grind. Our host, 30NSG. And on today's show, it's Thursday. It's the end of the week for me. As far as these live shows go, we do this Monday through Thursday from 10 o'clock in the morning till noon Eastern. If you like it, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We are going to be watching videos today. We got 3 reaction videos from YouTube today. We're going to be watching Force Gaming. He played and made a video about 27 minutes long of Jump Ship, which is that co-op game that's a mix of like Sea of Thieves with Left 4 Dead type of thing that IGN talked about. We watched the video about a year ago about it. Then we watched the video a couple days ago about just a small-on preview of it. He has a hands-on preview, goes much more in depth of the game, so I want to watch that, get the thoughts because I'm interested in that game. We're going to watch Kind of Funny Games. Okay, talks to Matt Piscatella, and he talks about some numbers. And what the video game industry is doing and just what console sales are and whatnot. So we'll watch that as well. And then we have a video from Legendary Drops. He says this game wasn't made for you. He's mostly talking about Avowed, but he's also talking about the game industry itself. If we have time, we'll also go over Level Cap's video of Battlefield, the next Battlefield, I should say, about what they should do with Battlefield. If we don't get time to that, we'll talk about that tonight on GXG. So, how's everyone doing? What's going on? We see who's in chat here. First up, Stealth says, thank you for starting after the Pokemon Direct. You're welcome. I didn't even know the Pokemon Direct was happening because I am not a Pokemon guy, but thank you very much for the $5 super chat. Appreciate you. All these super chats are going towards my my new computer, so I do appreciate that very much. Like my own, like when you take like 20% out of your currency of your paycheck or whatever, you move it over to something else. That's what super chats are, right? Not memberships, not anything else. Super chats are going directly into the pocket for the PC. What's going on, Sarge? What's going on, Eclipse? Big Mo, Stealth, Jason Marshall, Wolverine. What's going on, man? Who else am I missing? Worlds, what's going on? Nice to see you. Dog, what's going on? I'm about 21 and a half, 22 hours inside Avowed. Water Bear, what's going on? Who am I missing? Anybody else? Dustin, good morning. Roadkill, good morning. Heck, good morning. Hilly, good morning. Got everybody. How's everyone doing? We played some Battlefield 1 last night, or did we? We couldn't find a server, so we switched on over to Star Wars Battlefront 2. We played with Jones. Oh, Robert Jones. What's going on? Good morning. We played with Robert Jones. We played with Mr. Luke. We played with Sarge. So anytime we play with a group of guys, you're more than welcome to join in. What's going on, Kraken? I didn't say good morning to you. Well, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Level 13, and I finally feel powerful. Level 13, how many hours are you in? Because I think I'm a level 11 right now. Level 11, I think I am. Not that Luke. Yeah, that Luke. We got lots of videos, lots of one's 23 minutes, one's an hour and 15 minutes, but we're gonna cut out a lot of that. And then the other one is 27 minutes as well. So 2 27 minutes and an hour. So we'll be here for 15 hours. 15 hours of me commenting over this. You just got the 21 hours. How are you much more higher level than me? That's crazy. I've done like everything in the first section. I guess you're just killing more shit. All right. Let's start off. You want to start off with Legendary Drop? Do you want to start off with Kind of Funny Games? Or do you want to start off with Force Gaming's Jump Ship? Chat. Get the pin thing down. Oh, when Mo came in, it just so happened that I didn't plan it. I was actually going to play that song, When You Pay, I Play. I mean, I know everyone gives it, like, if someone's outside of this community and doesn't understand the songs, like, the songs are very reminiscent of what things I talk about and whatnot. We have a song for Travis. We have a song for Roadkill. We have a song for Mo. If you guys would like a song and you want me to make a song for you, I have no problem doing that. You just got to give me some info. Like, Mo comes in every day and puts, what's it called? He puts the taglines in, and it's just funny. So, part of the community. So And it's a good song too. It's got a good beat. I don't care if you like Xbox or not. It's got a damn good beat. Hilly says Daisy when. I'll work on it. I'm working on a Kathleen Kennedy song. I'm trying to work on a WB song right now. And Hilly, you'll understand this, right? When you make a song, sometimes the music, like you can make the words, but sometimes that music just does not sound good. It doesn't have a good beat. So I've made, I shit you not, I must have 60 or 70 WB songs, and I don't like any of them. None of them. I'm waiting for like the right one. I have the words that I want, but I just don't like the music. What's going on, PS5 blows? I buy eggs from a guy in an alley, $2.95 each. They just raised the price at my local place, 25 cents more for each egg, or 50 cents. I think it's 50 cents. You got to put Cartman in the Kathleen Kennedy song. Oh, well, if I make a video, I'll put him in there. It's hard to make the voices. You know what I mean? Like it is what it is. I don't think I can. Maybe I could try that. I could try to maybe a small part, put it in. You know what I mean? And see if it sounds like him. I don't know. 60, 70 songs. How many songs do you have altogether? Oh, well, okay. So the way it works, Roadkill, when you make a song in the AI program, you type in your prompts and stuff like that, what you want, and then it makes 2 songs each, right? It's like 10 points. It's 10 points for 2 songs, okay? And when the songs just don't sound good, you delete those or whatever you want. I have hundreds and hundreds of songs, different takes of different things. Like for instance, right? This is the same words of make a game, sell a game, right? So this is the first song that I usually play, which is like country, right? Right? And then this is the other one that's a little bit different. It's the same words, just put to different music. It starts with a spark, a vision in your mind, a world. Right, so one is more rock or alternative, and one is more country. It's the same words, same exact words. I just try to find a good beat to put it to. Get what you want. Somewhat quality needs 200 generations. Yeah, it's. I don't want everything that I have as songs, like the Tim Miller or the Tim Kaine song. I want that to be cheesy. I want the Marvel Rivals to sound like a Flash Gordon one, right? So I'm really trying to find the type of song with the type of lyrics that I want. Billy says making AI music is like playing Baldur's Gate 3. It's fun, but fundamentally boils down to the role. Yes. It's that. Is it going to be good? Is it going to be? The prompts help you more. The more you understand the prompts, you can get the vocals in the background, right? Like you can get a duet. You can get the vocals to do for the different verses and stuff like that. If you just type in the stuff and then just put like rock, you'll get the stuff. But you can actually fundamentally break it down to like the bridge sound like this, verse 1 sound like this, put more guitar, more piano. Like you can actually start messing with it. It's actually pretty cool once you understand what you're doing. Let's see. Rookta says, boys, taking the next week off to work on my reading on my downstairs, or working downstairs in the kitchen cabinets, flooring, ceiling, redoing it all. 1 week. We actually, I have a meeting today. We're looking to get our kitchen, our cabinets and stuff redone. I don't want to get rid of the kitchen that we have. I want to redo the kitchen because it's like real wood, but it's built in like 1947 or 42. So I want to do it myself, but my wife's like, I want it done sometime this year. I was like, okay. All right, did you guys answer if you guys want to do Legendary Drop, Kind of Funny, or Force Gaming? What do you guys want to listen to first? I'm learning, Jones. I am. When I first started making the songs, and now what I'm doing, like you could tell a lot different styles of the music and stuff. Altern says jump ship. Roka says I do home construction every day of my life. This time nobody's paying me. Roka, you want to come? You want to come down to Florida and do the stuff for me? I'll pay you. Illy says force. Guard says jump ship. All right, so it looks like jump ship. Jump ship looks like the one. All right, so let's start with jump ship. You guys like what we do here? We do this Monday through Thursday. We cover news stories, have conversations. On Thursdays, it's the end of the week. We usually watch more videos. So we're going to be watching 3 videos today. Dolphin says kind of funny. Too late, Dolphin. All right, too late. You're too late for your vote. Vote's been on. Okay, so here we go. Let's see. Do we need to do speed? 1.25? That should be good, right? 27 minutes. That brings it down to like 20 minutes.
Tons of new games.
Let me know if it's too fast for you. I've evolved as a person. I can listen to like 1.5 to 2, and it sounds okay to me. So 1.25 might be a little too fast for some of you. Morning, Wonder Rose.
Surfacing thanks to the ongoing Steam Next Fest. I'm planning to jump in and try a bunch of them over the course of the next week or so, hoping to find some gems within the sea of demos. Got my eyes on a handful already that seem pretty promising. In the meantime, though, there's another game that I played recently that I think you guys might really like. It's called Jump Ship. So think Sea of Thieves in space.
All right, I'm thinking Sea of Thieves. Okay, Sea of Thieves. The water looks a little different.
With roguelike progression. You play in first person, manually flying around your ship, going through all these different space settings with varied points of interest, and then in each area you have this one distinct main objective.
Windows says, morning. I've seen about this game, Jump Ship. It looks neat. I signed up for the closed beta. I got an email. Then I'm just going to wait for the other email for the code and figured out I tried to play it. Nice. I didn't know you could sign up for the closed beta. I'll just wait for it to come out.
Along with a handful of other side activities to try to complete. So you might be asked to locate and disable a jammer that's preventing you from jumping to a new location, or to infiltrate this enemy compound full of all sorts of aggressive robots, or take down anti-air
Is that good speed for you guys? Good speed?
Installments that are attacking your allies, or disable the defenses of a massive cargo ship before infiltrating it and stealing their goods, along with quite a few other different...
I thought it came out today, Roadkill. I thought it was coming out today, not tomorrow.
Varied things. And then while doing this, you are free not only to fly your ship, but you can get up and walk around. The inside of these are fairly elaborate with many different areas, equipment, and facilities to aid in your adventure, along with powering your ship's offensive and defensive capabilities. And in many cases, these actually need to be manually engaged with and managed as well. And then the kicker, though, is that you can also, in real time at any point, come and go from your ship whenever you please, exiting from one of several different locations, launching out into the atmosphere, flying around space with your jetpack, and then landing at whatever your target location may be. Some sort of an installment or a base on the planet side or a ship that's actually out in space. In fact...
Oh, is that what it is, Stealth? I gotcha. Maybe the clip I watch. Yeah, that was yesterday. Talking about today.
A lot of times there are going to be enemy ships attacking.
So when is now? Right now. Yesterday was yesterday. Today is today. Yesterday they said tomorrow, which is today. Right?
And you can actually leave your ship physically, directly grappling onto those ships as they fly by.
So when will then be now? Soon.
Destroying their vitals with your weapon, causing them to then self-destruct, jumping away just in time before the thing explodes, and then grappling back to your own ship as it flies by overhead. And there are lots of many such moments in this game, which lead to this gameplay loop that I found thoroughly enjoyable. And because your ship was under attack, it sustained damage.
You didn't like Sea of Thieves, so, well, when they say Sea of Thieves... Right? When they say Sea of Thieves, dog, they're talking about just a cooperative, like being on a ship. One, there's no water. 2, there's no PvP in this. It's a PvE game, so it's not like Sea of Thieves when it comes to that. They're saying as working as a team, working on a ship is like Sea of Thieves, but meets Left 4 Dead, meaning you're going up against PvE content where you have to work together to try to beat them.
Damage, resulting in actual literal fires on board that need to be put out, or sections of your power grid that go offline needing to be restored, or you might get a radiation.
You're getting motion sickness, Jason? All right, maybe I'll slow it down. Maybe that's why it's getting you get motion sickness. We'll put it down to normal speed.
leak that has to be repaired, and then you need to physically get the radiation
I think he's
off
got it
your
moving
ship,
fast
otherwise
as
it
well.
will continue to sustain damage. The entire game flow is you flying your ship to a location, heading towards some objective, fending off whatever enemies happen to arrive in that process, managing the needs of your ship as things are falling apart, and then engaging in first-person combat to eliminate space robots, to deal with those other ships as we mentioned, and then trying to complete whatever task you happen to have. All of this coupled with some seriously legit.
I like the fact that when you're playing with a group of people, everyone's you're depending on other people to make your experience fun or really annoying. You know what I mean? So if there's literally a fire on the ship, like someone has to put it out while someone else is piloting the ship.
Gunplay, which I was not expecting, frankly. Just surface level looking at this game, I assumed the gunplay would be not great, to be honest. Like a AA indie game, I really wasn't expecting much, but they've done a real solid job. Like even just the base level pistol-like multi-tool feels pretty fantastic to shoot. Yeah, this is a really cool game, and it's been a pleasant surprise, at least from what we've seen thus far, which has amounted to roughly 10 hours of playtime. So that is the high-level overview of Jump Ship. Now I want to go into a bit more detail about all of the components, the gameplay loop, the different systems, and everything that you'll engage with in the game. But first, check out today's sponsor. This is actually also another pretty neat looking game. Today's video is sponsored by Revenge of the Savage Planet.
Oh, we were just talking about this last night with Sarge. I said this looks pretty fun.
This
is a co-op game as well.
Is an upbeat action-adventure sci-fi satire game where you explore these wacky alien worlds, jumping and shooting your way through 4 vibrant planets, collecting gear and upgrades while uncovering various secrets hidden throughout. The game features third-person action-adventure combat. You can run, jump, shoot, grind, stomp, dodge, slide, lasso, and grapple your way through the world. They promise plenty of challenging combat encounters with alien boss battles, problematic software, and the occasional greedy CEO. There are 4 savage planets to explore, each with their own flora and fauna. You'll search the environment, scanning and cataloging everything into your index, while also defeating enemies and collecting new gear. There's habitat and character customization, with each planet packed
I don't
with
know,
nooks and
Alter.
crannies hiding all manner of rewards and secrets. You can even customize your character as well as your own personal habitat. And this is also a collection game, as you'll lasso and capture dozens of strange alien creatures, and then you can go visit them once they've been relocated into their happy place, these pens outside of your custom space trailer and scenic.
I like how it's a beautiful new Florida.
New Florida. Revenge of the Savage Planet is launching on PC via Steam and Epic Game Store, Xbox Series X and S, and the PS4 and 5 on May 8th, with early access on May the 5th for anyone who purchases the Cosmic Hoarder Edition.
We'll try this. You know why? You know why, chat? We're going to play this on stream. Why? Game Pass.
You can use my link in the video description below to wishlist the game. Also, if you purchase on Steam within the first month of launch, you'll receive the Cinco de Mayo Trash Panda suit and a free copy of the original game, Journey to the Savage Planet. Lastly, there's a 10% off discount for the first week of launch starting on May 8th, only on Steam. Okay, so let's get back into the specifics and details of Jump Ship. Let's start off with how the basic gameplay loop, like what is it like? What are you doing as you're sitting down for 30 minutes to an hour playing this game? So you start off by picking a mission from the galactic map. You're going to have a bunch of different options. You pick the one you want.
Which looks like Helldiver's map choice.
Then you take off into space from this starting point, picking one of multiple maps or nodes with these.
Which also looks like Deep Rock Galactic, the way you pick your missions. I mean, there's a bunch of games that you could look at that have the same type of style like this.
Different locations, objectives, and rewards. You will then jump to that chosen area upon arrival, scanning any points of interest, revealing enemy ships, turrets, and loot areas, as well as your main objective. And then you'll decide if you want to do any of the side stuff, you'll head to those, or if you just want to go to your main objective, you do that, completing whatever task is asked of you, while also gathering resources and weapons in the process. And then once that task is...
This will definitely be a fun shooting the shit with Sarge game to play.
Complete, you go back to the map in your ship, selecting the next node from a branching path, giving you a few different options. You jump to the next location, scan the nearby area, rinse and repeat the entire process. Go about either doing side things, completing your main objective. Once that is done, you can then select and jump to another area. You go all the way through from start to finish until you eventually complete the mission and head back to your hangar. So let's actually go through that in actual detail. So after completing the tutorial, you actually arrive at your hangar.
Ray says, Helldivers from Timu, count me in.
And this is where you select the first mission you want to start, along with manage any and all of your long-term progression and character customization. So in here, you're going to find the adventure log. This is a terminal displaying the different quests or missions you have with their objectives and rewards. There's a shooting range where you can test out the game's different weapons, with there being 4 tiers of an assault rifle, sniper, SMG, and shotgun. There's a few other weapons and tools in the game, but those are the 4 primary ones you're going to be searching after and using. You've got the quartermaster, who lets you use currency that's earned on your missions to unlock new cosmetic options for your character. The dockmaster, here is where you purchase different classes of ships. There's going to be your basic all-arounder, which is what you start with, but then you can
Didn't they get rid of gold? Didn't they just merge it into Game Pass?
Flies into a ship that's better at fighting, or one that's better at carrying more cargo. Now, those multiple ships actually weren't available in this build, but they will be when the game comes out, because it's not scheduled to release for at least a couple more months later in the summer. Then you've got ship.
I want to know how it's going to work. Like in Sea of Thieves, if I have my ship is different than your ship, right? So if you come into my game as the host, is it the ship that I unlock, or is it every game that you have, can you buy the ship? You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm the host, then we always have to play on my game. You see what I'm saying? Or I wonder if you could pick and choose. Like, if Sarge plays the game more than I do, and we want to use his ship instead of mine, that's what I want to know.
Progression. So behind the dockmaster is actually where you manage your ship's various components. You're going to start off with some baseline versions of each part, and then unlocking upgrades by completing certain quests, or even, we were told, just finding them while out on the mission unlocks them as well. There's some other fun stuff, like you got a jukebox that lets you cycle.
This reminds me very much so of Deep Rock Galactic.
Through different songs you can listen to. There are soccer nets that you can kick or shoot the ball around trying to score a goal. And there's even some chairs you can lounge in while sipping on your beer. If you had a little too much, it might be a little bit of it.
Yeah, this reminds me 100% of Deep Rock Galactic.
An extra lounge. And then you've got your galaxy map, and this is where the actual gameplay begins. This is where you're going to select your first mission. So when you start playing, you're just going to have this one outer section on the perimeter of the galaxy map available, in which you're going to find a handful of
Starfield is on core now. I think they moved it to core as well, Ray.
Starting missions. Hovering over each mission will show you its main objective, the very last thing that you're going to be asked to do to complete the mission, as well as a challenge rating starting from 1 to trivial all the way up to 5, very hard, an estimated duration of how long that mission completion should take, and then the rewards that you will be given at the end. So there are 2 main types that we have come across so far in terms of the main mission goal. There is the cargo ship raid and the artillery support. Again, this is your ultimate goal. It's going to be the thing that you're doing in the very last map node on the mission.
So the map right there, real fast, it says how long the duration of the mission is. 1 hour. Easy, but 1 hour.
Ultimate goal, it's going to be the thing that you're doing in the very last map node on the mission. Prior to that, though, you're going to have many different paths with various objectives to pick from while en route. And then as you complete missions, you will unlock new quadrants of the map, slowly moving closer to its center and to more dangerous but also more rewarding areas. Okay, so from the galaxy map, you're going to pick your very first mission. Now, initially, you should probably, the very first one you're going to pick is this trivial difficulty 20-minute run that is literally labeled play this mission first. But for the sake of the video, let's take a look at some of the more fleshed out ones and as what you're going to expect as you play more and more of the game. So we'll start off with, say, one of this moderate difficulty cargo ship raids. So first you pick the mission, everyone in your party then readies up, a countdown timer starts, and you load in. You get a little cutscene of your ship taking off and flying out into space, and you actually first arrive at this neutral point in space. And then as you're on your ship, the very first thing you're going to do is walk to your map, which is located right behind the pilot seat, and here you're going to be displayed and given a couple of different options for what path you want to head down. You'll usually be picking from one of 2 to 3 separate paths with further maps.
Should I play the mission first? It says play this mission first.
Branching from there, and every node is going to display the map's location, whether it's somewhere in space, in an asteroid field, on a planet, on a moon, wherever. It's also going to show the threat level and the reward that you can expect to get for completing it. So you're going to select the first one that you want, and then one player hops into the pilot seat, points.
Imagine what these guys are doing right now in this game, but you can do this now in No Man's Sky. You see what I'm saying? No Man's Sky has already got the base level there with all the different planets and different things you can do. and we all have our own ships in there. But wouldn't it be cool if you could be on one ship and like do what they're doing in this? That would be an interesting update if No Man's Sky did that to compete or to add to their already massive space game.
The ship in the direction and then initiates the jump drive, first making sure that everyone is seated, otherwise someone is for a world of hurt. Jumping will then load you into that selected map, and then it's time to do your first objective. Now before we do that though, I want to actually take a closer look at the ship itself because there's a lot here. So the ship consists of multiple different locations, terminals, and stations. First off is the sensor display. Right behind the pilot seat on either side of the mission map are 2 sensor displays that give you this overhead like aerial view.
That's what they should do for No Man's Sky. You should be able to make, in No Man's Sky, you should be able to make like a guild, a group or something, and then you can get a guild ship. And then you go on missions together with your guild or with your group. And then with inside No Man's Sky, you go on these missions to upgrade your ship and work together. Be a cool mode
of the current map that you're in. So it's going to display the location of your current objective as well as any other noteworthy points of interest. Now, some number of these will actually be hidden, simply requiring you to scan in order to reveal them. And then once scanned, you're either going to see a grouping of enemies, some loot, or other point of interest, and those will remain on your HUD while you are going about completing that particular objective on that particular node. Also on the ship is this power grid. Now this presents you with a grid of open slots, which you place the ship's different components in a Tetris-like fashion within. So as you play, you're actually going to find and unlock new reactors along with additional generators that will open up more available slots. And how this works is the higher level components take up more space typically, requiring you to fiddle around with their placement if you want to actually have them available and powered up. Then you've got your assembler. This uses materia, which is a resource that you'll find in a mission, to craft different weapons and utility items. Here you can make weapons like a rocket launcher and an SMG. You can also make a fire extinguisher, ship ammo, armor.
Once you make the weapon, is that it? Or does the weapon deteriorate over time?
A ship repair kit, along with any of the ship's numerous components in case one of them happens to get destroyed or lost. There's the cargo pad. So outside of the ship are actually a couple of transporters that you can use to quickly dump items into, and then those will appear on this pad after they've been deposited to either be moved elsewhere or scrapped, or for you to just pick up if you want to take them out while doing an objective. There's the scrapper, which will turn any items you don't want or some of these hot ones that are specifically made to transfer into materia. And again, that materia is used at the assembler, but also at things like the medical station where you can transfer materia into healing yourself. You're also going to find fire extinguishers at a few locations. You will need to pick those up when your ship inevitably catches on fire, which is going to happen. Also bound to happen is your ship taking damage, in which you will physically need to take repair kits and place them into the core, which will heal them quickly over time. And if you haven't been able to tell already, this is in a lot of ways very similar to Sea of Thieves. The ship itself is a big part of the gameplay experience. You'll be moving around it, you'll be arranging the power.
Dustin says, I would put friends' loot out in space. Well, their loot is your loot. So you just be trolling yourself because you're working together as a team.
Power grid, you will be putting out fires, healing the core, and repairing any damaged components or areas of the ship that happen to sustain damage.
I would veto you off the ship, Dustin. I put you in the airlock chamber and send you off to space.
While you're getting in dogfights out in space with other enemy ships, done actually manually as well with your power tool. You physically have to patch up the ship in various ways. But then beyond that are all of the missions and objectives you have, which you actually do in first person, typically having to leave your ship and set out on foot or floating through space. So there are numerous ejection tubes that give you a quick exit from the ship, along with a handful of doors that actually require you going through an airlock room before entering or exiting. For the most part, you will use the ejection tubes to leave the ship because that's the fastest, and then you'll only be really using the doors when you're returning, entering into the ship. Okay, so that's a bulk of what you'll find and do and have to pay attention to on your spaceship. Let's talk about the rest of the gameplay experience. So after you first jump and arrive dive into a brand new map, you're going to have some primary objective like we mentioned. These can vary, but the ones that we've seen most often include the following. You'll have to disable a jammer. The early version of these in particular will have a jammer located in the center of this floating facility. So you'll fly the ship up to it, and then you'll physically get out, board the facility, and then go to this terminal to activate it. At that point, it's going to call in these robot reinforcements attempting to defend the jammer. So you have to deal with those, try to avoid taking damage, destroy them, while also having to attack these 12 different weak points, which are represented by boxes located all around the facility. Once you destroy all of those, and if you haven't died, you can then...
I like the way obviously you're in space and you're magnetically attached to the base, but I like how it's in like is that right? 4D? Like every side of the thing, it moves with you. That's cool. It's cool level design.
Interact with the terminal again. This begins a self-destruction timer, and after a few seconds, the facility blows up. Make sure you're not sitting in the middle of that, and then you can collect loot from the remnants. There's also jammer ships, which is like the above facility.
Oh yeah, you're gonna break a controller or two. Alternative, if you play with randos that don't know what they're doing, and they're like Dustin, where they're taking the stuff and throwing it in the shredder, or launching stuff out into space. Well, 100%.
Jammers, but it's an actual physical ship flying around. Usually comes with an escort. Attack the ship, disable it, board the ship, and then destroy it. Then the jammer's dealt with, and you can finally jump again. You'll come across a distress call, which is actually a friendly transporter ship that is under attack. Fly to it, protect it by destroying the enemy ships, and typically there's going to be a larger number
you board
and
other people's
harder ships
ships
to deal with here. This
The
is where a
NPC
lot of the
ships?
ship combat comes into play. There's also capture points, where you have 3 separate bases that are full of enemies. You need to go to the point, kill the enemies, capture it to flip it over to your side. While this is happening, enemies are going to keep spawning in at each of the 3 points, as well as ships spawning in with reinforcements coming from space. And then finally, we've got the investigate signal. So this is some of my favorite stuff. Basically, these will be some sort of a base located on whatever given map it happens to be on. Some of these maps will be in space at facilities floating. Some of them will be on asteroid fields. Some of them will actually be planet side or on the side of a moon. So you go there and then have a additional task to complete at the facility. So these areas are predominantly always full of enemy robots, and there's like a wide range of...
I can see a problem with this game already. I hope the variety of bad guys is different than just robots. One of my biggest pet peeves with No Man's Sky is the bad guys are just robots, the Sentinels. And the Sentinels are just they get old really quick. You know what I mean? So I hope that obviously what they're showing it's early on. Hopefully they add a different amount of bad guys or NPCs to kill, and it's not just the same group of robots.
Different robots with different attack types and weapons and special utility and things you have to deal with. You engage with them in FPS fashion, and this is where the game's gunplay really shines. It is actually pretty darn phenomenal. Like, I'm super impressed, especially for an indie game, how good it feels to shoot weapons. So you typically, when you go to these investigation areas, you have to move through several locked doors heading further.
Right, same as Avengers, right? Like, don't get me wrong. I like shooting the robots. I like shooting the Vex. You know why Destiny was so well received? Because you weren't just killing Vex the entire time. You were killing multiple different races of aliens the entire time, right? It kept it, even though there was only like 3 or 4, it kept it fresh when you went to different places. It wasn't like, oh, Vex here, Vex there, Vex over here, Vex over there. Like Marvel's Avengers. Like Suicide Squad, where you're going against the exact same thing all the time. It gets old really fast.
Inside of some facility, and then once inside, interacting with some sort of a terminal, all while fighting robots along the way. Now, once inside, we found a few different objective types. There's one that asks you to restore power, where you got to go around finding multiple batteries and then placing them into this outlet. Other ones ask you to override a security system. So you start the override. This will be interrupted throughout, usually like 4 or 5 times. While you're waiting for this progress bar to fill up, there's going to be tons of enemy reinforcements spawning in. And then we saw...
You get to play Brainiac 13 times, you know, type of thing.
an open gate one where you had this area with a really large like reinforced door that actually requires you to find and return these 3 radiation cores that are spread throughout
I think
the
the
map
mission
at other locations.
diversity is
So you
cool.
got to get into your ship, fly to the core, pick up the core, put it on your ship, and then bring it back to the gate. Problem though is these cores progressively deal more and more damage to you as you hold them, and while they're on your ship they will also deal damage to your ship over time. So you gotta basically try to make this transport as quickly as and carefully as possible. And yeah, as mentioned, these mission types are absolutely 100% my favorite sort of objective and activity in this game. I'm really hoping to see more of these and more elaborate variations of.
Well, you're talking about Xbox Game Pass Core to what Game Pass Ultimate is, right? You got to make the problem and you got to sell the solution, right? There's no difference in what Xbox is doing with that, the way they have the plan system, the tier system, as what Ubisoft is doing when they sell a game, where they charge you $70, $100, $120, or the $18 Ubisoft Pass, right? It's the exact same thing. Where if Core, right, the basic of Gold or Core is nice, but doesn't have a lot, okay? But you got to make it look shittier than what you're offering for a small price, but just a little bit more money than you're paying now. That's how they get people to move over.
Of these as the game continues through development and leads up to its release. In particular, as much as I love these, I would want to see some bigger facilities with more enemies, with harder enemies, and more complex tasks for us to complete. Please, I'm begging you to make that. And then sometimes you'll come to a map node that just says, hey, there's some valuables here, go find them, with little to no danger, but just loot to discover. In particular, we found this one asteroid field where we went inside of an asteroid and it was just full of chests with a ton of good items inside. That was fun to find as well. Now, in addition to that main objective in each node that you're jumping to, there's usually a couple of other side things that you can do in each one of those maps. So these include things like buoys or derelict ships. These are just...
Here's a problem I can see with this game. Couple of glances that I can see right now. Right, if the game comes out, and I don't know if it's going to be in early access when it first comes out, or beta when it comes out, or it's like full release. And I wish more games would stop doing that and wait for the game to be complete instead of making a game like a small portion of the game and then like building it. So like, let's say there's only the Sentinels that are in the game right now, and then all of a sudden they start adding more, and it's like a big seller, like, oh, it's 12 months afterwards, and we added the second new faction, and you're like, okay, yay, right? I'll be already over and done with your game. Where if you start off with a large chunk of different factions or races in the game, it's almost like me telling you, like in Multiverses or Marvel Rivals, put as many hero characters or as many characters to play as possible, because that's the front loaded, so it keeps me busy with those characters, and then you add more as you go. This has to do the same thing. When you're doing a co-op PvE game, you got to put enough characters in the game so it keeps me wondering and it keeps it fresh. If they have, like you said, I wish they put more enemies in, harder difficulties, more places to... They should do that more before the game comes out. Not, here's a sprinkling of early access, play that for 6-8 months, and then the game launches, and it's the exact same game it was at alpha or early access beta or whatever it was. Because people are already done with the game at that point. People are done with games. They play it early. It's the same as it releases at gold, and then they don't support it afterwards because no one's playing it, because this is the hot moment. This is that first sight, right? Love at first sight. First impressions, okay? So if people like it, they're like, oh man, this is cool. PvE, co-op, you get to be on a spaceship and doing all this stuff. But if it doesn't change much from the early access to release, and then release comes out, they don't add any more kind of thing, the game will die really fast.
Just essentially empty stations floating in space devoid of enemies. In most cases, they will have several loot chests with weapons, resources, and currency inside for you to pick up. And then there's also the ship remains, which is just materia that's floating out in space from ships that have been previously destroyed. And then also, as you're going through these missions, there are several threats for you to contend with. So there's going to be floating mines out in space, and if you get too close, they will lock on, track you down.
Here's another thing it sounds like. It sounds like Sea of Thieves from early access. When I was in the Insiders program for Sea of Thieves, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like it's very light on content, and it's going to be that way for quite a bit.
and then jam themselves into your ship, you or a teammate has to then exit and attack them. Otherwise, they deal continuous damage to the ship's core. There are sentry turrets, which have a very long range, and if you get too close, they fire homing missiles that will explode on impact, damaging your ship. Although I will note they can be dodged if you boost and spin the ship at the last minute. There's also just enemy ships patrolling around. They'll roaming around every single map. If you get too close, they will engage. You'll have to deal with them. There are invasions that can happen, so periodically, besides the roaming ship patrols, you're just going to get...
I think, though, Brain, so Brain says, well, I can forgive a game like this because the game is very indie, so they probably need to get some extra money, and I'm fine with that in the long, as they use it to make a better game. But my point is, like, for instance, Helldivers, right? Helldivers is out, and Helldivers is still adding stuff to the game because it's a live service game, and it feels fresh. Right, they're constantly updating the game. There's more things to do in the game. There's like a story background going on. So even though it's in early access and it's missing content, it feels like it's part of the story. Where this feels like it's just missing content and they're building it as they go. And I think it would be better if they just worked on the game without pushing it now and people help build it. But then it releases and it has a substantial amount of stuff in the game already, and then they start supporting it and adding more to it instead of doing what they do, because a lot of people will play the game and they'll be over it by the time it comes out. They'll be done with it, and they won't even touch it once it comes out. They'll lose a huge player base off. It'll dip off.
New waves of ships spawning in, and you have to deal with those before you can jump to a new location. And then all of this and taking damage and being attacked results in you having to fix your ship. When you take damage, your ship can catch fire. You can also be boarded by enemy robots that have to be killed. And then all of this will cause several spots of the ship to be damaged and require you to walk up and manually repair those as well. So you're just going to keep going. You go to a map node, you jump, you complete the objective. Maybe you do the side stuff, you jump.
What am I working towards? Are we working towards to get to a certain location? Is it one and done? Once you die, you're kind of done. You got to start over again. Like, what type of game is this?
Up to the next one, and you keep jumping from one node to another until eventually you reach the end of your current mission, which, as mentioned, has in case of what we've seen, has typically been one of two things: the cargo ship raid and the artillery support. So the cargo ship raid has you attacking this large transport ship, asking you to break several key parts of it from the outside, and then that disables the ship, letting you board it, go into these large cargo container areas. There's tons of enemies in here as well. You got to get in, kill the enemies, collect the cargo, return it to your ship, and then you have to do this before the timer reaches 0. Otherwise, you get a ton of reinforcements and you're pretty much screwed. The second main objective that we've seen in missions is artillery support. This one is kind of like the zone control one, except there's a health bar for your friends and your enemies at the top of the screen. You have to go to these 3 different anti-air locations and take control of the area in a King of the Hill style mode, and you need to hold more. You need to hold 2 of the 3 for longer than...
You know what would be a really cool same type of game, right? Think about this game where you're a group working on a spaceship together. What Marvel brand would you guys pick for this? Where you go mission to mission, 4 players, maybe 6 players, be on a ship, right? It'd be cool. Guardians of the Galaxy, right? You're Guardians of the Galaxy, and you're going on missions, and you're trying to complete, but you're saving people or saving things or doing things, right? Be pretty cool.
And your opponent in order for their health, the health of their battling ships to go down before the health of your battling ships. And all of this has a backdrop of these 2 ship fleets like fighting out in space in the skybox, which is pretty cool to see. So the whole process of the mission is you starting it, you picking one of the multiple map nodes, going from one to another, picking the ones that you want, getting to the final objective, completing that objective, and then jumping back to your hangar. Mission complete. Congratulations, you were successful. In terms of progression, there's really not a lot here at the moment. It's pretty much entirely the ship components. You will unlock different variations of each of the components, those being the defense.
Okay, so here's another thing, which I said earlier. Maybe he says this in the video, but let's say we're playing on my game, right? The ship progression in my game is like this. So Sarge helps me, okay, and then Travis and Eclipse are also on my team, and we're leveling up the ship in my game. But now they play their game. They have to do the exact same thing over again. You see what I'm saying? So that's like, okay, we have to do the exact same thing, but now I got to go in Brain's game, and then I got to go in Travis's game, and then I got to go in Sarge's game, and we're playing the same game. We're doing the exact same thing multiple times against the exact same things to level up the exact same ship as we're going up. I don't know, man. Stuff like this gets repetitive real fast. So I wonder if it's total level for your character, total level for your ship, and your ship is the ship, or if it's in each host for each of the systems.
System, pilot cannons, multi-turret, special weapon, engine, reactor, and then auxiliary generators. And they're going to have different strikes for each of the different variations. And then also you can use credits that you get while playing to level them up individually. So you pick a component that you want, you can level it up from levels 1, 2, and I don't know how far it goes, but it keeps leveling. But yeah, no character, no weapon, or no tool progression. None of those.
Yeah, this sounds light. This sounds light. No character, no weapon, no tool progression. This sounds exactly like Sea of Thieves when it was in early access.
Weapons, character, and tool, there's no way to progress either of those things. It's really just exclusive to the getting the ship components leveled up and trying the different variations. The developer has said they're considering this for the future, but right now they're not sure if they're going to keep it just to ship progression or not. A couple of notes here, starting with my likes. Gameplay, it's top notch, the whole loop, everything about it, and also the game is run amazingly as well for the most part. Handful of areas on a couple of the map nodes that I did see some FPS drops, but even when that did happen, it didn't last for very long, so that's good. But yeah, just the whole experience, the fact that we can smoothly go from flying the ship to getting up and walking around to checking the sensor to checking the map to launching out of the ship, grappling onto an enemy ship, attacking it, blowing it up, then jumping away, flying into some station, picking up some items, shooting a rocket launcher, grappling to the surface of a
This all sounds awesome when it first happens, and then it kind of gets old real fast.
Planet, and then boosting up and flying away, attacking robots.
I mean, it looks fun. I will play it. I will try it.
Then going back to my ship, like, it's just like there's so much happening and it's smooth and fluid and there's no loading screens when you're within a map. You are loading from like map node to map node as you move through a mission. But while you're within a map, like you're doing all this stuff in the ship, out of the ship, managing, attacking, fighting other ships, fighting the robots, repairing your ship. Like it's crazy.
I would do a spaceport, right? This is just me shooting shit out of my head, okay? I would do like a spaceport. So let's say you're playing by yourself. You have your ship, okay? You go either in the menu system or you fly there by yourself. Let's say you need help, okay? Maybe none of your friends are on the list, okay? But you make it inside in-game. So you're flying in. It's a single-player game. It's a co-op game. But then you go to a station, sort of like the hub inside of No Man's Sky. When you go to that hub, it pops in and you fly in, and all of a sudden, now you see everybody else there, okay? Then you can ask for help. You're like, hey, I'm on this mission. I need help. And then boom, you get randos coming in, and based on the amount they play, you can see what their rank is. So you're like, oh, this person knows what they're doing, type of thing. Instead of just looking at your Xbox playlist and whatnot, or just getting in with randos, that would be interesting. So far I've said that No Man's Sky should implement this in No Man's Sky, and then now I'm saying this game should implement that hub inside of their game. That would be interesting.
They do a good job of the whole, a lot of fires to put out, like just like Sea of Thieves. You're juggling a lot, you're dealing with a lot. There's always something to consider in all those capacities. And it just, the whole thing, really, really enjoyable. Lots of funny and hectic moments that result from this as well, as you're juggling all of these different tasks with friends. I'm sure this game's going to be plenty of fun solo, but it's absolutely like, it's going to be funner and funnier with other people that you're playing with, without question. And as mentioned and already talked about, I think the gunplay in this game feels
it's PvE.
Fantastic for an indie shooter. It's not even a shooter, right? It's an indie space flying ship management game that also has shooting. So the fact that the gunplay, it just feels as good as it does. Nice surprise. I do have a couple of main early on concerns. Probably my number one complaint at the moment is that you don't carry over anything that you acquired while you were going through a mission. As you go.
Oh no. So it's like a roguelike. So you're done with the mission and you don't hold on to anything. So you're basically leveling up your weapons until the end of that mission. And when you're done with that mission, you either succeed or fail. And then when you're done, you get nothing except you're leveling up for the ship.
Go through the nodes and you're picking up these weapons and you're getting ship upgrades and doing all this stuff, and then you get to the final node, you complete the last objective, whether it's just attacking the cargo ship or destroying the anti-air turrets to protect your fleet. You finish the mission, you go back to your hangar, everything you picked up, it's gone. Oof. All of that is lost. It does get converted into currency, but man, it just feels bad.
What you know that meme with Steve Carell from The Office? That's what he just said there. That's what I feel like right now. You just told me, which is fine, right? Like, that's their game they made. That's what they decided to do. But boy, does that feel like, so it's a very, very small niche game. And when I say niche, I'm talking like fun for an afternoon, fun for a weekend, and then kind of put it down. Or you're like, what do you guys want to play? You're like, oh, you want to go play Jump Ship? Yeah, let's play around Jump Ship.
Every time it happens. Not being able to take a cool weapon that you found, or an extra power grid, or upgraded pilot weapons, anything, feels really lame. It especially makes it feel awful if you find anything remotely good on the last 1 to 2 map nodes as you're going through a mission, knowing that it'll be gone if you successfully clear the run. Man,
we could do that, Ray. Yeah, we could do that. If anybody wants to play when 33 Immortals comes out.
And I just really wish you could keep your stuff. Now, the developer has mentioned that they didn't allow this because they don't want to trivialize the difficulty, but I gotta tell you, already as the game is, it's actually quite hard. Like, we died often. Having to deal with your ship being on fire and getting attacked and controlling these points and all these robots getting summoned in and new ships coming in. Like, we
Yeah, but okay. He said that the developers didn't want to make the difficulty trivial. Well, let me put it in perspective of, we're playing Avowed right now, right? There's no level scaling. It's just like, that's the level of the character. It might be a 1 skull, 2 skull, 3 skulls. And if you're below level and you have a 3 skull, you could brute force it and it could be hard on you, but you could do it, right? Or if I leveled up myself, then I could do it easier. With a mission like this, if they put guns in the game that you get to keep and cool weapons, if I find that weapon, I played your game, I put the time in, I happened to find that weapon, the RNG dropped or whatever, I should be able to take that weapon and bring it with me. So now if I'm playing harder content, it just makes it a little bit easier. It doesn't make it where I'm a god and I can just like destroy all the content. But like, if hard is hard, okay, but now I find this weapon that makes hard a little bit less than hard, okay, but still difficult, then that makes it feel like the character that you're playing, respect the player's time. I was on board on this game until he said nothing moves forward. Because that means that anything I do for the hour I play, the 2 hours I play, the next time I play the game, I'm starting back at scratch. And that right there, that's what hurts. Okay? You have to have some sort of system in the game where they feel like they're leveling up. If it's not the weapons, but it's your level. And if your level levels up, maybe it makes it easier for you. I don't know.
Failed a lot of the medium difficulty missions, let alone the hard difficulty. I think we even failed one of the easy difficulty missions. So this game is already pretty hard, and everything scales based on player count. The number of enemies, the difficulty of enemies, the tier of the type of enemies, and enemy ships that show up will all scale the more players you have in your group. So I really don't see the harm in them letting us keep like a cool Mark III rifle if we happen to find one from one run into the next. I hope they change this. Also, a second early concern is probably the variety of content. In the 10 or so hours that we played, we saw a lot of repeated areas and points of interest in each of the map nodes that we went to. I am just really curious on the exact number of different objectives, events, and POIs that they're going to have.
Whatever they have, if they have 5, they need to have 15. If they have 15, they need to have 25. You see what I'm saying? Like, they have to have more. They have to have a variety of different things. Okay? How many times have we've played just a PvP shooter? It starts with 8 maps. You're like, oh, wow, 8 maps. Well, 8 maps sounds like a lot, but when you play 8 maps and you play the game for 3 hours a day or 3 hours a week, and the next map doesn't come out for 6 months, you play that map a lot, right? And then out of that 8 maps, you might like 4 of the 8, and you don't want to play the other 4 maps. So then you're only playing 4 maps the majority of the time, which then even gets more stale. Anybody remember Metro? Okay, in Call of Duty. I'm sorry, in Battlefield. Okay, like that is a meat grinder. You're like, I don't really want to play this. Like, that's what happened in the beta of that game, when they put Metro in the game and you're playing Metro, it was the early access. So that's the only map you were playing. So when the game came out, because people were playing it for a month, when the game came out, they didn't want to touch that map. So the problem with this game I see right now is the content, is the lack of content coming out. If it's even in alpha, early access, whatever it is in early access, that's the way the game's going to come out when it comes out.
When the game finally comes out, especially because we were told there's no procedural generation to these points of interest. Like when you go to a base on
it's
the
even
moon,
worse. No procedural generation. So now when you've been there, you've been there. So now you know it. So the next time you come, it'll be easier.
There are different versions of those, but each version is the same. There's no like procedural placement of the layout or anything. And as of now, the biggest one that we've seen took at most tops like 10 minutes to clear. So it's all pretty small.
10 minutes to clear. Do that a couple hundred times. You're going to put this game down, not touch it.
Which is fine, but it would be ideal, in my opinion, if things at least culminated in these much larger locations and objectives. So I'm just really curious if how long it's going to take before you feel like you're constantly going to the same POIs over and over and over again. I'm worried right now that could be a concern, but we'll see when the game fully comes out. Also, lastly, while performance was good, I had like smooth FPS for the most part, pretty much the entire time. I did notice a high number of client crashes. Could be the build, could be my PC, really not sure, but I just wanted to make note of that. Otherwise, man, yeah, jump ship, pretty great. Now, the game is planning to have an early access launch sometime in the summer of 2025. No exact date or month has even been announced as of yet. What we played recently was an early preview build, and they still have many more months of development to go before it's released and ready to play. But as is, I love the core loop. I think they've built something quite enjoyable for at least those first 5 to 10 hours that I've seen so far. Like I said, my biggest worry at this point is if they're going to have enough variety to keep people around long term, and that the progression system, whether or not it's going to provide enough incentive for people to keep coming back over and over and over again. Both of which may very well be fine come this game's release. But those are just my initial thoughts from this early hands-on. But yeah, like I said at the top, I think this is a pretty cool game. Definitely something I thought some of you guys might be interested in. So there you go. That is our look.
Kylo says, I'm going to jump ship and not play this game. Look, I'm excited for the game. I think it's nice to see games like this try different things, but sometimes they try to force it out the door before it's ready, right? So I get it. It's early access this summer, but early access, you're going to get a small amount of people. I don't mind early access games, but it does seem reminiscent of Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves, I played for 2 years, right? Was it 2 years? Might have been longer, okay? In early access, okay? I loved it. I was like, this is so good. I can't wait for you guys to see it. But then as the time went by, it was 2 years in early access. And they said, okay, we have an announced date. We're coming out. I was like, no. I was like, this game is not ready to come out. Not ready to come out. And it wasn't. Sea of Thieves wasn't ready to come out. Now, obviously, we can look back at hindsight's 2020, okay, where it's been 6 years since it came out, or 7 years since it came out. And Sea of Thieves is in a much better place than it was when it launched. But I just feel if these developers want to make games like this, let them cook, let them be better. Look at No Man's Sky. Massive thing, very little to do, got repetitive really fast, okay? Took them 2 years to fix it, and then they haven't looked back. They just keep adding more stuff. I feel like games like this could really shine if they were very executed very well and had a really good first impression. Instead of your first impression, it's light on content, then come back to it, and you never do. You never do, because especially in this day and age, there's 1,000 games, right? There was 19,000 games that got released on Steam last year. 19,000. There's already like 800 games that were released already this year, or 1,000 games that were released this year just on the PC. So to compete, you have to come out with a product that's fun and complete, instead of chasing it going, oh, we'll finish it 6-8 months from now, right? But those are my thoughts. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, go over to Force Gaming's channel, give him a like. I like his stuff. I like when he does these reviews and type of things, these early access type of stuff. All right. I think the game is fun. It looks fun, but it also looks repetitive, and not in a bad way. Just great. I'm shooting robots. 10 hours of shooting robots. 20 hours of shooting the same robots. 30 hours of shooting robots. Is that worth your time? Maybe, but he just said within the 10 hours it felt good. But after the 10 hours, is it still going to feel good, or is it going to start to feel repetitive and people are going to put the game down? people are going to put your game down regardless, but you want to give them the best. You want to give your game the best opportunity where people don't want to put your game down. So, all right. Let's go over. You guys want to watch Legendary Drops next, or do you want to watch Kind of Funny Games next? Kind of Funny Games is talking to Matt Piscatella. He's talking about the industry, video game industry. Is it doomed? Okay. Or we watch Legendary Drops where he's talking about Avowed and how this game's not made for you, or just the industry itself as well. All right, let me see what you guys are saying here. Let's see. Kylo says, I'm going to jump ship. Braun says, hopefully this gets delayed so I can focus on Avowed. Kylo says, it has good ideas, but hopefully it does them well. Like you said, they just want to push it out with the excuse that it's being early access. Right. Waterbear says Avowed. I don't know if it's on Avowed itself, Water, but I think the majority of it, I think, is on Avowed. I didn't watch the video. I watched the first couple of seconds of it. Kind of funny. I already watched the Legendary Drops. I mean, I'm okay watching the Kind of Funny. It's long. What time is it? It's 11 o'clock. Yeah, you know what? Let's watch this one. Let's watch the Kind of Funny. The first part is housekeeping. It starts at the video game Doom and Gloom. Starts there. All right. Thank God for chapter markers. All right. We're watching Kind of Funny. I don't care if you like Greg Miller, you hate Greg Miller. I don't give a shit about that. We're just watching this because Matt Piscatella, he's an analyst, goes over the numbers. He used to work for a lot of different companies, doing analysts and stuff like that. So he's a person that you can take it with a grain of salt. If you guys don't like him or whatnot, Greg or Matt, that's for you to decide. But I want to have a conversation about what they're having a conversation about, which is just the video game industry, game sales and console sales and what the future holds. So this is what we're going to watch. Okay.
I did a great job.
All the descriptions, by the way, are in the all the links are in the description down below. So if any of the videos that we're watching right now, if you're watching after the fact, if you're watching this over on X, if you're watching this after the fact over on YouTube, all the links are in the description of all the videos we're watching today.
Teeing you up. I showed you know the numbers. You're listening to consumers. You're paying attention to the graphs and stuff. The question here is the video?
We might have to raise this up because it's pretty long. I'm going to put this to 1.25. I don't think anyone should get motion sickness. And I think the speed will be okay.
Video game industry doomed? Because a lot of these numbers don't look great when I hear them. When I ask you, is the video game industry doomed? How do you come at that answer?
Yes, it's doomed. Everyone run. It's over.
Well, first, let me make sure the mic's still working. I kind of crapped out there.
You sound great. No, you look great. You sound great.
Awesome. All right, what kind of timeline are we talking about here? Are we talking short term, couple years, or like in a million?
I love this podcast already. I love this podcast already. Give me the short term and the long term. Are we doomed? What's happening?
All right, so no. And in fact, consumer behavior is very strong. Like the demand from folks for video game content, whether to play or spend, is still as high as it's ever been. What the challenge is and where the change is happening is where
I'm assuming there's more games to play, so less people are buying one game or one popular game, and they're spreading it out across multiple games.
They're playing, why they're playing, and where they're spending. And we're in a period of really big, meaningful change. But the good news is this is pretty easily explainable about how we got to where we are.
COVID-19. Everyone thought the bubble. Everyone was staying inside. More people played video games, and they're like, hey, let's double down, triple down on this.
The big challenge is what's happening right now and the uncertainty it brings, and then what happens next.
Sure.
So no, but things are certainly changing in pretty fundamental ways.
I love that response. For you, what is the biggest fundamental shift you're seeing right now in forecasting for in the next 5 years?
Well, there's two things. The first thing is where we are in terms of the total industry. Now, for decades, right, video games have been a growth category. Big growth as more players entered the space, as more ways of play developed. Organically, the industry grew. In 20 and 21, that changed. Everyone who wanted to play as much as they wanted to play and spend as much as they wanted to were able to. So instead of having organic player growth in a lot of markets, we hit a ceiling.
Right. Because instead of trying to get the growth slowly over the years for the gamers, everyone was locked inside their house and everyone wanted a game. So the growth that they wanted over the next 10 years happened in 3 months, 10 months, whatever it was.
Now there are still pockets of there are still territories where growth is still happening in a big way. India, China, Brazil.
Sure.
But for those territories that have had a video game market for a long time,
I would assume China and United States are pretty much saturated.
We've hit ceilings, and so we've gone from a growth industry to a mature industry. And what that means is it kind of changes how people look at investing. The other thing that's happened, of course, is the live service game revolution. I have some stats for you we could get into in a bit, but the amount of players and the amount of time that are going to the biggest live service games in an era where we have more games being made than ever before, and when we have a ceiling on player count, is making a really big, tight bunch of competition there that's been absolutely brutal.
Well, the competition's brutal because we all have 24 hours in a day. That's the currency that they're going for. If there's 19,000 games on PC, it's going to be really hard to get your foot in the door, right? Like, I'm competing with Netflix. I'm competing with television. I'm competing with every other person on YouTube. I'm competing with all other networks, right? I'm taking your time and you're watching me right now. Okay, so I'm winning off of you 29 people that are watching me right now. Okay, I have your attention in some way, shape, or form, right? Some of you are probably multitasking. You're at work listening to me in the background. You're playing a game with me in the background. You're just watching me, whatever it is. But I have your attention for this moment, which means you're not watching or doing something else.
And we can get into that, but those two things are what are really combining to kind of put us where we are in terms of the market.
I love all that. So the one I want to double back to is you talk about in 20 and 21, that change, that we went from a growth market to a mature market. When you say that,
those of you that don't understand what a mature market is, basically mature market is slow growth, okay? Meaning it's saturated, okay? They're basically at the top of where they're still growing, but it's very slow, very slow. And how do they fix that? Well, in certain markets, like he said, they're not in Brazil, right? They're not in India, okay? Those markets are not saturated, but the markets that are saturated in the United States and in China, okay, those people are saturated for consoles. Console sales are not going up. They're actually low inside these territories. Not in Brazil, not in India, okay? PC's also at that mark. So these are saturated. Now they're looking for other markets.
Is that just...
Hence why Xbox and PlayStation are moving their games more to PC, because the saturation, the mature market, okay, is the consoles are not selling as much as they did in the past.
Was that COVID related? Because that was our big thing, it felt like, in 2020, right? Everybody's at home and suddenly people are like, well, I'm just going to buy a PlayStation, I'm going to buy an Xbox, I'm going to do whatever. Is that what that really was?
Absolutely. The stay-at-home activities, people changed their entire social lives to revolve around gaming. And we saw significant...
I didn't. When COVID happened, I didn't change a goddamn thing. I played as many games as I did when COVID wasn't here. Why? Because I've been a gamer my entire life.
Significant growth in both player count and hours across all demographic groups, across every psychographic profile. And hopefully, honestly, we never have to see that again, because you don't want a society that's forced to stay home and just play video games, right? Yeah. We want to do that when we're, not going to work one day or playing hooky from school, playing hooky. Wow. But yeah, so like that's what that was all about. And when you have that happen, and all of a sudden you go, okay, well, this is the player base. This is as big as it's going to get. How do we grow? And the only way you can really do that is to have each player that's still playing pay a little bit more, which is
pay a little bit more. Hence why video games have been the same the entire time. The player base is not growing. Saturation point, mature market, whatever you want to fucking call it. And that's why games went from $60 to $70, not because they're being more expensive, because they have to get more money out of each person because the market's not growing in the certain regions.
It's another reason why we're seeing some of the things we're seeing from publishers and developers.
So then, fascinating. My question really then becomes, as we're talking about the future, we're talking about this. You have this mature market, everybody in 2021 who would get it. You listen to the show. You hear me talk all the time, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I think I got a okay grasp on this. Am I right when I'm saying the layoffs and closures and all of this happening is because we're still seeing...
Krebsy says, I don't agree. I don't know if I agree with that. Lots of companies are trying to enter the Chinese market. For example, PlayStation with the Chinese Hero Project, and also putting games on PC to grab their Chinese players because the consoles are saturated. That's why they're putting more towards the PC gamers. That's what it is. The reason they're putting their games on PC is because the market is saturated and they need to make more money. And they can't make more money because it's slow growth. The man just told you it's a mature market, except in certain areas, which they said 3 places, okay? And China's not one of them. China and United States are the 2 biggest markets in the world for video games, PC and console. Console's saturated in both those territories, okay? And the people that are in console, that's why they're moving their games to PC.
Publishers, venture capitalists, investors who bet on the growth they saw in 2021, 2021, not stopping? Did they do this thinking? Did they do this not knowing we were at the ceiling?
Some absolutely thought that growth was going to continue. Others were a lot smarter about it. But yeah, some of what we're seeing now is from overinvestment, driven by this idea that the line was going to keep going up when it came to players and hours, and it just didn't. All kinds of reasons for that. People had to go back to work, had to go back to school, really had to go back to work because the prices of things around everyday spending categories from housing to grocery have continued to accelerate.
But that's always been a thing. This is not a new thing. This has always been a thing.
And people are really getting squeezed, so they're making decisions about what to do with their time and their money. That's having an impact in what we're seeing in the video game space, surely. So that's a big part of it. When you're a growth category forever and you change to a mature category, all of a sudden the economics around investment decisions change significantly. You're playing a share game rather than a growth game, meaning that for a long time the market would grow organically, so you could grow as well. The tide lifts all boats.
Sure.
Right, because there was less people playing games then, so the growth was consistent, but now you're at that saturation point.
But in this kind of market, if you're going to get an hour of playtime, you have to take it from some other game or some other platform, right? And so the entire dynamic of the strategic decisions and tactical decisions change based on what happened there.
So then my question now becomes...
That's why games are more live service, right? To keep you coming back, why they have season passes and different things. Okay? If I was a game developer, I would look at all the big top games and when they come out with their seasons, and I would come out with my seasons in between their seasons, if that makes sense, right? So, like, let's say season 1 for Call of Duty and Fortnite happen to be within the week of each other in the beginning of March or something like that, or April, whatever, right? But I want my game to survive and people play my game. I would wait 1 month afterwards and then start my season 1 month after they started their season. That way, if people wanted to come over, they would start playing the season, and the seasons don't overlap, so where it's like a one lump sum of, oh, it's spring, and now Call of Duty, Battlefield, Forza, Fortnite, whatever, all have their seasons drop all at the exact same time, because then you're competing for that exact moment of their time. They have to choose which one they're going to play.
Are we to a point, when we look at developers, when we look at people making games, where the bloodletting will stop soon? Like, are we to a point where people who want to publish games understand now that there isn't this infinite growth? They understand they could hopefully make this much profit, and that they're investing in things that are going on. I'm drawn to the one, the only Jason Schreier, of course. I subscribe to his Bloomberg newsletter called Game On, coming out of DICE last week, where I hosted an award show. I crushed it. Everybody loved my performance.
I like how he said that. Yeah, everyone loved his performance. If you guys haven't seen that clip yet.
He has a whole thing in here talking about how, well, it used to be this, it used to be that, and now there's not a great vibe, right? But despite the packed bars and coffee shops, the vibes were not fantastic at DICE.
Krebsy, he literally said that it's a mature market. The console market is mature, meaning it's a slow growth. In certain regions, it's not growing. They're just maintaining. Other regions, like India, like Brazil, that's where they're trying to grow the console market there.
Last year, the most common phrase in town was, quote, survive until 25, end quote. This year, those who have made it are looking for a new pithy mantra, perhaps persist until 26. It talks about, of course, tens of thousands of people have been laid off. Venture capitalists who were once offering huge seed rounds at hefty valuations as they look for the next Roblox have scaled back in a big way. Global turmoil and softened appetites have scared off investors from Chinese companies. Few believe that this wave of layoffs is over. Taking that context and that color and applying it to the numbers, are you seeing publishers, venture capitalists wake up to the fact of where we are now?
Oh yeah, the risk calculation is happening maybe to an extreme on the on the downside, meaning that as over enthusiastic as some folks may have been in like 20 and 21, we're now seeing the opposite, where we have maybe a little bit more pessimism than is really warranted.
Oh, okay.
But that's kind of natural. It's never as good as you think it is when it's good, and it's never as bad as you think it is when it's bad.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of where we are. The survive the 25 thing. Yeah, I use that phrase too. I think I'm
I missed what he said there. Sorry, I was looking out the window for a second.
opposite, where we have maybe a little bit more pessimism than is really warranted.
Oh, okay.
But that's kind of natural. It's never as good as you think it is when it's good, and it's never as bad as you think it is when it's bad.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of where we are. The survive the 25 thing. Yeah, I use that phrase too. I think I might have used it near the beginning of it, but that idea was all around Switch 2, Grand Theft Auto 6, reinvigorating folks to come back into gaming that may have stepped back from it over the last few years, and getting investors excited again about the category. So maybe we should have said survive to the middle of 25, or whenever
they delay GTA 6 too, whenever that actually pops out.
I can't even think of that. I would get another ulcer, and I've got too many.
Okay, so then I like to hear it's not as bad. When it's bad, it's not even as bad as you think it is. That's helpful. In the short term, what are we looking at? Like, again, I kind of asked it, but I monologued for a while there. Like, is the bloodletting going to let up soon? Are we going to get out of this? How many more cuts can there be?
Ooh, I hope so. The challenge
Hope so. I mean, he doesn't know.
we have, right?
Nobody knows. It's all. We're all on the edges of our seat to see who gets fired next.
So let's talk about service games for a second.
Please.
If you take the top 10 service games every month, you're talking Grand Theft Auto Online, Roblox, GTA, or Call of Duty, Marvel Rivals right now.
Sure.
You take the 10 biggest live service games on PlayStation and Xbox. 7 out of every 10 people that turn on their console will play at least one of those games every month. And
7 out of 10 people will play one of the top 10 games of a live service.
in terms of total
And just to tell you, 3 of those games are in the Xbox ecosystem.
time they're taking, those 10 games alone every month take up 40% of total play time on the consoles.
How much?
Every month take up 40% of total play time.
40% of total play time. 40% goes to 10 games. That means 60%. All the rest of the games go to 60% of the other ones. Holy Christ. That pie chart's 40%. Okay. Goes to 10 of the games. And then all the other, so let's just say 19,000 games, 10 of them are taking up 40% of the population of gamers. Okay? So the rest of the 19,000 are fighting over the other 60%.
On the consoles. So, you look back 10 years before the big revolution of live service games, people would get the big game, they'd move to the next big game, move to the next big game. You had that full pool of players and hours to pull from. Now, because of these live service behemoths, half of the gaming time on consoles is just gone. It's going to be eaten by those games, right? So you're fighting more and more for those hours and players that are remaining. The other part of that is the audience is really changing their purchasing behavior than they had even 10 years ago. Now, your audience, right, the people here in the chat, you're on the very extreme enthusiast side, right? Let me tell you,
if you're watching a live video game talk show, right.
Right.
You're not the
right. If you're watching a live video game talk show, watching a person talking about a live video game talk show, right? You're in that 1 percentile.
majority.
Just real quick on purchase frequency, like how many games someone buys in a period, right?
Yeah.
30% of people that play video games will not buy a video game this year.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, I hate when they do stats like this. So 40% of the people that play video games right now on console are playing 10 games. One of the 10 games of the 10 live service games. Okay. 30% of the people okay, in just all of gaming, are not going to buy a game this year.
Wow.
So that's a third of the audience that just won't buy. A further 18% purchase a new game every 6 months or less frequently. So
18% buy one every 6 months. They're buying 2 a year. 16%.
these are your folks that are buying Madden or EAFC, or they're picking up Call of Duty, right? Your big mass market only kind of buyer. The kind of purchaser that's watching this show, you're probably buying at least one game a month, maybe more. Only 12% of video game players buy a game once a month. Only
12% buy a video game once a month. Now, that could be a $4 game. That could be a $70 game. That could be a $180 special edition game.
4%
I'm sorry, did he say 4%? Hold on.
show, you're probably buying at least one game a month, maybe more. Only 12% of video game players buy a game once a month. Only 4% buy games more often than once per month. So
4% buy more than one game once a month. That's so small.
So, when we're talking about the developers and the publishers that are really being, hurt the most, that we're talking the most about, are the games that are really targeting this like 16% of total players that are, purchasing very frequently, while the mass majority of players are buying a game or two a year and they're playing Fortnite, Minecraft, and Roblox.
Right. And I don't see people spending a lot of money on consoles just so they can play one game. The majority of the population is playing on console, all right, and they only play 10 games, and they're not buying new games, so they're not going to buy a new console, right? So that even goes back to the people on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One and stuff. They're probably still playing Call of Duty or playing whatever game, right? If it's Fortnite, if it's Minecraft, if it's Roblox.
And I think that's like the biggest challenge. The biggest competitor to any new video game is Fortnite. I will die on that hill no matter what it is, because you have to fight Fortnite before you fight anything else to get your game seen and purchased. And that's like the biggest challenge I think happening right now.
The question I always have when we talk about this and we're talking about the numbers and blah, blah, and obviously when we jump to people trying to compete with Fortnite, trying to put out the next great live service, right? Rest in peace, Concord. And move on to all these different games. And I know Concord is live service, but stick with me. It's the conversation I have, and the question that raises here is everything you just said good news for indies? We talk about indie development.
No, discoverability is even harder. I'll take his question and just do it to YouTube. My channel, there's like, I forget how many people. There's like 1.5 million or 15 million YouTube channels out there, right? If there's 19,000 games and you're an independent developer going up against Fortnite, Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, okay, that's like my channel, same exact experiment here, or example, okay, going up against Asma Gold, Dr. Disrespect, and I don't know, Mr. Beast, okay? Like, I have very little reach to get into everybody else. I have a potential as just everybody else, but the discoverability of my channel compared to like an indie game is the exact same. It's super hard to try to get your game, your channel discovered.
Right? You talk about this 18% that are the hardcore buying multiple games in a month. I always talk about on these shows, right, that the level of success Kind of Funny needs is so much smaller than the level of success IGN needs on their videos, right? And so I look at game development that same way. When you see inevitably Square Enix publish a game and they'd be like, it didn't meet expectations, versus some indie mouthwashing sold 500,000 copies and they're over the moon and they're coming to console now and it's going to be great. Like when we talk about this and how hard it is to make that big game and get that share of time, is that good news for indies because they're making something smaller with a level of success, a level of getting into the black that's better?
I mean, they could sell if they do get discovered, or whoever gets it. Their budgets are not as big, so they don't need to sell millions and millions of copies. But it's still going to be hard for them to be discovered.
So there's opportunities and there's risks, right? The ability to be flexible, the ability to have a smaller budget, the ability to like do whatever you can do in a much faster fashion than a big publisher can is absolutely an advantage. The challenge is discoverability is getting more difficult rather than less difficult.
Especially discoverability becomes less or harder because more people can make more games, because game development is not becoming it's becoming less as hard, where Just like the phone made people where they could go in the stock market now much easier than the people that were day traders and stuff like that. Now anybody can put stocks in the stock market from their phone. Okay, the game developers that only knew the code and only a certain amount of people could make games. Unreal Engines made it a lot easier. Unity has made it a lot easier, right? A lot of these engines have made it a lot easier to make games, and everyone can make a game now. You don't need 100 people to make a game. You can have one person making a game.
The democratization of publishing means that we're seeing just this rapid increase in the number of games available, whether they're actual good, well-developed games
or good or bad.
Games that are just churned out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
The shovelware out there,
Of
like
course.
the competition for discoverability is really difficult. So there's pluses and minuses there. But personally, when a game does hit from the indie space, it hits in a pretty big way now that it might not have before. But boy, is it really hard to get seen, right?
Sure.
That's the challenge.
In this conversation of bringing up Square Enix, talking about indies, I liked this Blue Sky post from you February 9th. Look, sometimes sales expectations for a game are based on reasonable benchmarks and forecasting, but often they are the result of a formula that includes things like costs and profit expectations. Folks at pubs know when a target is aggressive, but you don't plan a sales target that loses money. It's reasonable to make an argument pointing out where breakdowns happen that caused a game to disappoint, but it isn't because folks at pubs aren't hyper aware of what reasonable sales expectations are. Can we go into depth on this? Because this is one of those forecasting things that obviously we don't know ahead of time, and then it is, guess what? Dragon Age the Veilguard came out after going from being a multiplayer thing to being a single player thing to getting all this different hate, and then they're like, guess what? It didn't move nearly enough copies for us to think it's a success, and we're all like, well, that's a good number of copies, but you only gave it 2 months. Like, can you drill into this a bit with me and talk about what sales expectations really mean in this industry?
I mean, they mean based on the budget of the game and what they think potentially it could make based on the franchise, based on the interest of all the stuff. That's exactly what it means. So if you buy a Star Wars brand from Disney or Marvel, it's already got a baked-in audience, and they're like, oh, we suspect that this many people are going to buy, a minimum 5 million people are going to buy the game, and this is what our budget is, so our expectations is that we need to sell 7 million copies, and then when they below expectations, that's what they mean. They're like, oh, it's below expectations. We projected 7, it hit 5. You know, if 5 is good, it's not great.
Sure, like this is what I did for a decade at both Activision and Warner, and everything from Mortal Kombat to Arkham to Lego to Call of Duty and Guitar Hero.
Sure.
The process works. So there's a process called greenlight, and it's basically a gate where a game is either greenlit for further development or redlit, meaning development is canceled. There are numerous gates that go all the way from concept phase all the way to launch. You know, there could be 6, 7, 8 gates depending on the length of development.
Sure.
At each of those points, a forecast is created, a P&L is created, a profit and loss statement, which takes into account both potential revenues and potential costs, and ultimately to a profit estimation. In order for a game to get through those green lights, everyone involved in the planning, from the most senior leadership all the way down, has to agree that we believe there's a chance that this P&L is possible, that this profit is possible, right? And so as inputs change, whether, hey, we need another year of development, that's going to cost X million dollars. Can we absorb that? Do we think we can achieve a higher Metacritic? Can we get to a bigger audience?
Well, Waterbear, you know it's not sold well because it's going to PlayStation Plus, right? It's already going to a service. So it didn't sell very well in 5 months.
How is this going to be likely able to allow us to increase our revenue expectations? If so, then those levers all change. It's all part of a big equation. And at the beginning, you may have hey, here's the game. Here's our expectations on when it'll launch, what platforms it'll launch on, the genre, everything that could make up a game's basically quantifiable components. And you come to a sales target, say, we think this game can sell 3.2 million units, right? But over time, as all of those inputs change, as all of the intricacies happen over the course of development, that number can change quite a bit so long as everyone...
I've said this example before with my videos, right? On YouTube, you want a 1 out of 10, right? Not that it means shit, really, right? Your video that you put out, you think is good, but then it comes out and it does good, and it's 1 out of 10. But after 3 hours, all of a sudden it drops to 2 out of 10, and then 5 hours it drops to 7 out of 10, and it goes to, and it shows you that movement's time is constantly moving. So it all depends on how many people are buying or watching, in my view, okay, to tell you what the projections are. I could tell you, well, this is projected because in the first hour it had 100 people watch. It's projected to hit 1 million. But then a day later, you look at it, it's only hit 100 people, right? Or 1,000 people.
Holds hands and says, okay, we're going to believe that we can do this. We're going to believe we can hit this target. And even when everyone knows that, hey, this is a pretty stretch case, like this is a very optimistic scenario, but we think it's possible. The fact, let me turn it around, right? Like Veilguard in particular. Veilguard had a very troubled development. It took a long time, a lot of years. Courses changed.
Who could have saw that coming?
The fact the game continued to get greenlit was a show of confidence that they believed that this game was going to be able to overcome the challenges it had in development, right?
Sure.
The fact the game made it out is actually a very positive thing because
Oh, really? I guess it's positive that Concord made it to the finish line and then closed down 12 days later. I'm sure it's positive for that. I'm sure it's positive that Redfall came out and bombed. At least you can still play Redfall.
I've been a part of a lot of games where we just said, you know what, this isn't going to work, cut it. And that decision is extremely difficult. If a game is canceled in development, it is for darn good reasons, because there's no belief that the expectations would be able to get met. It's a very drawn out, it's a process that involves so many people, so many inputs, so many opinions. And at the end of the day, you come up with a number, and that number might not be exactly what you think that game is likely to sell, but you think there's enough likelihood that it could, that you believe that it's still worth putting the game out. And whenever that happens, it's a great thing because it shows that people are believing in each other, that this thing could actually work. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't, but it's not because everyone didn't understand what was happening along the way.
That's fascinating. And one of the questions I want to present and then give a hypothetical one is, right, when we see games get canceled, especially when they're further on, I always talk about the point of no return. And again, this is just me talking, not knowing anything. But all right, the game's been in development so long, I always think of the idea of, well, some money from the project is better than no money from the project.
Not really. In the movie industry, sometimes the tax write-off is better than the actual releasing of the movie.
Is that a foolish, or am I summing it up? Am I being too simplistic with that answer? Because obviously there's plenty of games that don't make it out through the gate. And I think, yesterday, 2 days ago, when we talked about Fair Games and the rumor that it's been delayed further out or whatever, I've been saying for a while, and Blessings now on my team, of like, Fair Games I don't think is ever going to come out. So I do expect one day to get the announcement that they've canceled Fair Games. But then the conversation yesterday, 2 days ago, when Blessing brought up my thing and tried to take it as his own.
Isn't Fair Game the other live service game? Is that third party, or is that first party from Sony? That's a third party, right? Fair Game? Am I thinking of that correctly?
Opinion, which I see, Blessing. Don't try to take my opinions. But the conversation was, well, then why wouldn't you cancel it here, right? If we think it's gonna be canceled later on, why would you delay it here? I guess, still green gate it, have the game go forward, but not kill it here. And I know I'm asking you to talk about a hypothetical that's pulled from the real news, but you can take Haven Studios out of it and Fair Games out of it and compare another game that made it, got delayed, but still got canceled. Like, why not kill it in the crib right now?
Right. So you're doing that at every point along the way, whether it's concept, alpha, beta, all the way down to gold. You're doing a probability calculation. And what I mean by that is you have certain
You're guessing based off projections.
levels of return you expect. So you're bringing out a new game and you say, you know what, this game could make $1 billion, but we're only probably 5% likely to get $1 billion. This game could lose $100 million, but we're only 10% likely to do that. You have a number of scenarios, you have a number of probabilities, you do that math. If it's negative, you cancel the game, right? And that's it's a very simplistic way of putting it. But you're always doing that evaluation.
Think about that. Think about that. And Concord got released. Redfall got released. Anthem got released. Think about these games that came out that were just, they're like, based on the example that he just gave. Like, yeah, if it wasn't negative, then we're gonna. So what are their math equations that they're using for these things?
And no, there's not like a spreadsheet with that actually happening. I'm speaking figuratively.
Of course.
That's the idea around scenario planning. And you go, okay, we feel good, we don't feel good, red light, green light. And so if you think there's still a chance that you can make it work, you continue to green light it because you have so many jobs on the line.
Of course.
You have total.
Right, House. Someone did the math. As Matt just said, someone did the math and said, "Oh yeah, Suicide Squad's gonna be so good for us." Right? There's a 10% chance it could lose $200 million for us. Well, guess what? there's a 100% chance now. The 100% chance that you lost $200 million from that game.
Physical plans on the line, your annual operating plans on the line. Killing a game is exceptionally painful for all kinds of reasons, including, not just the game itself, but the jobs that are tied to it, the people, that you want to be exceptionally clear that what you're doing is being done from, a point of really detailed analysis. So long-winded answer, yeah.
You're killing it. You're killing it, Matt. And thank you for bringing stats and figures. Everybody's having a great time in chat. But I want to pull one from chat. Francisco in the YouTube chat says, people are being cruel to fair games. We haven't even seen gameplay of the game yet. Yes, I know it's a live service, but to judge before seeing it, WTF. I want to answer, but kick it to you of like, I want to be very clear that I'm not saying fair games is a bad game. I'm saying fair games is entering an incredibly crowded market. And you're talking about these juggernauts of live service that I just don't see, not even hit.
Right. Your game has to come out and do something different than the 10 games that are dominating right now. If your game can't dominate and break into the market of the 10 games that are being played the most, then there's no point of bringing that game out.
Even Jade, PlayStation, I just don't like. I'm thinking of the probabilities. How many games have we seen try to scale this mountain and then be littered with the corpses of other games that didn't make it? Am I being cruel?
No, that's the exact calculation you have to make. But the people that know best about the game are the people making.
So wait, so he just said, is he being cruel because of his statement? When we watch games, we're like, yeah, it's not going to make it, right? We're not being cruel. We're looking at it, we're giving it the sight test. We're giving it the smell test. We're like, yeah, it's not going to make it, right? But when I said Concord was going to not make it, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a hard sell. I was called a hater, right? I was called a hater, even though if I worked for a firm, I'd be a market analyst telling you based off my guesses if this game is going to make it or not.
No,
mountain and then be littered with the corpses of other games that didn't make it. Am I being cruel?
No, that's the exact calculation you have to make. But the people that know best about the game are the people making the game, and hopefully secondarily the publisher.
Yeah.
And you're making those evaluations with that framework, but you're doing it with okay.
We didn't see gameplay for Wonder Woman. We thought that game wasn't going to come out. There's a lot of games we haven't seen it for, but we still make the comment of, yeah, it's not coming.
How likely are we to succeed? How likely are we to not succeed? And if they still have enough confidence to keep going, it's like, okay, we're going to give it another year, whatever game it is.
Yeah.
Let's keep going. Let's see what happens by the next gate. And then that's great. That means that people believe in it, and that's what you want to see. But if they don't and they kill it, that's not done lightly. And when you hear about that and people go, well, how could they kill that game? That game would be such a great seller. And it's like, well, they killed it because it was.
Transformers Reactivate we didn't see actual gameplay. We saw leaked gameplay of an early build, right? And we're like, oh, that's sad.
Isn't going to be, or wasn't likely to be. And,
sure.
And that's the conversations that are happening.
CJ Splits on Super Chats, just like you can to be part of the show over on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames and says, are Fortnite and similar black hole games actually harmful?
I like that they said black hole games. That's actually a good term. The black hole games. I mean, I'm going to answer before he does. Wait, what was the question? Hold on.
Fortnite and similar black hole games actually harmful?
Yes, they are harmful to a certain point, but they're also very successful for the companies. So for the industry, it might be hurting the industry. For us, the consumer, right? If you have a specific, you're like, I hate Fortnite, I don't want to play Fortnite, right? Some of you guys are pissed off at Elder Scrolls Online because, we didn't get the next Elder Scrolls 6 because of Elder Scrolls Online, right? Grand Theft Auto 5 has been out there, and we haven't got stuff for that because it's making so much money because of the online of Grand Theft Auto. So, yes, is it bad for the business? Yeah, it's bad for us, the consumer, because we want to play more of that game. We want to play the next sequel, the DLCs, but that's not happening because it's really good for the businesses that are making money.
Okay.
The pause, the thought, and the okay.
Okay. The two ways of looking at it. One way of looking at it are games like Fortnite or Minecraft or Roblox, games that last forever, allow people of all kinds of people to play them. You don't need to have a lot of money. You can play with your friends. You can build a community. Like, from that perspective, the games are great. They allow people to, have a great time and not ask a lot of them if they don't want to. But for everyone making new games, they're a huge challenge to overcome now because they have such gravity. People have invested so much time, so many dollars. Their friends are there. Like all of the hooks in those games.
That's a whole nother dynamic. Where are your friends at? Right? Where are your friends at? Because you might be enjoying a game, but your friends don't want to come over and play that game. Right? I've talked about this in the past about when you buy a system. Okay? Like if you're in a small group of friends, 4 friends, 6 friends, no one's buying a new system, but one of those guys buys a new system. And everyone's like, oh, well, Ted bought a new system. Which one did Ted buy? Did he buy a PlayStation or did he buy an Xbox? Well, if he decides he wants to buy a PlayStation, then maybe 4 of the 6 friends go buy a PlayStation. So now, if you want to be with your friends, you got to buy the same system as them.
Games are exceptionally difficult to overcome. You have to have a very special game to break out, right? And people aren't jumping from new game to new game to new game like they were in the past. It really takes a special new game to get people to jump in.
Like a Grand Theft Auto, like a Elden Ring.
And like the mass market. Not everyone in the chat here, you guys are generally playing a lot of stuff, but for the mass market consumer, am I going to go spend $70, $60 on this new game, or am I just going to hang out with my buddies in Fortnite? A lot of the times they're picking Fortnite.
Of course. We played Battlefront 2 yesterday, right? I guess we could have bought a $70 game to play co-op, but instead we just played Battlefront 2 from 2017.
Yeah, this is, it's a classic story for us. The success of Helldivers 2. I had been such a fan of the original, did not see this coming, did not expect this. We're here, we're playing it every day. And of course, my 10-year-old nephew, Jack, post-son, came and visited. And we finally got him to play with us after him wanting to stream Fortnite with us for so long. He started playing Helldivers, played multiple days with it. And then on that last day, he was like, this game's so cool. And we're like, yeah, are you going to get your friends to play it? And he's like, oh no, they'll never play this. We're like, what?
There you go. There you go. That means his nephew, his 10-year-old nephew, is not the alpha of the group. Because if he was, then his friends would go play Helldivers. But because he's not, you got to convince the one person that if he buys Helldivers, then everybody else will move because Tommy's playing Helldivers.
What do you mean? And he's like, no, they're never going to play Helldivers. And that's what you're talking about, right? It's the investment is getting all of your friends on board. It's the reason we see things like Split Fiction, Hazelight, right? Where one person can buy it and at least share it so you can play it that way. Like, there's so many moving parts.
A good business model, by the way, what he does with his games.
Parts to this to get someone anywhere else. Like, I always joke about like how hard it is to get anyone in the world to click a link. I put out the blue sky, I put out the post, and I'm like, Matt's on the show, and everybody's like, oh, that's really cool. But such a small percentage of them are going to click the free link to watch the free show versus talking about how you're going to get somebody to go buy these games, go play with you.
Yeah, I think everyone's got stories like that, personal stories, and can relate to this kind of idea. But that's what folks making games are up against now. And that's not the case or where it was 10 years ago. On the plus side, these live service games are keeping people in gaming and engaged. On the negative side, it's really making it difficult to break through with something new.
There you go.
Is it fair? Because when I talk about these and I think about this and I'm thinking about Jack and all his friends at school playing Fortnite, and that's just where they go and they hang out after school, blah, blah, blah. Is it fair that like a lot of, if not the majority of Fortnite the big live service game players wouldn't play anything else? Like, like the people who are addicted to war.
I mean, I guess you could say that, but at the same time, if Fortnite didn't exist, they would go play a different game. But because Fortnite is there, so I think of the way of this, right? So I played Destiny a lot. And before Destiny, I was playing Defiance. Before Defiance, I was playing Battlefield Bad Company, right? There's that game that I like, and then all of a sudden I get tired of that game. I put that game down, and all of a sudden I find another game. So I think there is that game, and that's before live service games, okay? Now with live service, they constantly evolve. They're constantly changing. So to say that the person that they stopped playing, if they weren't playing Fortnite, would they play that game? I think they would play more games, right? Even Asmongold himself that just played World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft. He was stuck in World of Warcraft. Since he stopped playing World of Warcraft, now he plays hundreds and hundreds of other games. He like saw the light. So yeah, if they weren't playing Fortnite, they'd be playing other games.
Warzone and play Warzone every night. Like, I remember when Call of Duty was a box game, and it was cool. There are gamers who are only buying their Xbox to play Call of Duty multiplayer. They weren't the ones who were like, I'm also going to try this JRPG. I'm also going to try this. Like, I would hope the benefit, and
40% though is a huge share of people just playing 10 games.
Tell me if you're seeing any results to this. You bring in a generation like Jack, you bring in older gamers who play the game for free, and maybe they do like that so much that then they are encouraged to look at the store. Is that just wishful thinking?
No, and I think it's one of the things why, like when I look at Grand Theft Auto 6, it's not just a benefit for Rockstar and Take-Two.
Sure.
Because that's the kind of game that gets people into consoles, right? That's the kind of game that makes people buy a new box, and hopefully then you get them buying
Yeah, Grand Theft Auto is a box seller.
accessories, or they're subscribing to something, or they're picking up some other new games. That's how that works. That blockbuster bringing in audience, and hopefully they do try some other things. And I think that's perfectly reasonable, and why so many people are looking at Grand Theft Auto 6, not just for what it can do for Rockstar and Take-Two, but what it can do for the entire industry. Whether it will or not, I mean, who can say at this point?
You say that. I have that question. I want to ask that question. But first, I want to remind people about the Kind of Funny membership. Of course, you can pick up the Kind of Funny membership if you love what we do here. An 11-person small business making live talk shows about video games all day long. Pick up a membership over on patreon.com/kindoffunny, youtube.com/kindoffunnygames,
Yeah, it's a
Apple or
commercial.
Spotify. And we're back with the one, the only executive director and video game industry analyst at Circana, Matt Piscatella. Again, thank you so much for this, Matt. This is such an honor to have you here, and you're such a good guest. I want you to know.
Oh, that's very kind. Right on.
It is time to talk about the elephant in the room for 2025, maybe 2026. Grand Theft Auto 6. Talk to me about, people understand the game's going to be big, but why is this such a big deal for your job?
So Grand Theft Auto 6 should be the biggest entertainment launch in U.S. history across anything. That's where the expectations set. It's one of the things that really breaks through,
But it could be below expectations.
not just into the video game audience, but across, all media.
Sure.
When we talk to consumer, we talk to them all the time. We had a recent study we did in the fourth quarter asking people, what are your expectations for how much you're going to spend next year, what you're going to buy? Nearly a third of the people we talked to decided that, there's a new game this year I want to get. And, Grand Theft Auto 6 is the one that's doing that. A little bit higher percentage, about 45%, said that there was new hardware this year they wanted to buy. So,
Okay.
Switch 2. It's Switch 2 in GTA 6.
Okay.
And,
So two things people are buying, right? What did he say? 40% play. 30% of the people are only going to buy one game this year, or one every game every 6 months, or something like that. So Grand Theft Auto is that one game for a majority of the population, and then one hardware piece, and most likely that's the Switch, right? The Switch 2.
these are going to be the two things that really move the market this year. But Grand Theft Auto 6 is the one that everyone's looking at as
Right.
being like, okay, this is the real deal. This is the game that could, kind of change the momentum we've had over the last couple of years.
So, are you hopeful? We just talked a little bit about it with the Fortnite analogy. Do you think that we'll see that boom, that it's going to be GTA 6 drops and people are like, oh, well, I'd never bought the during COVID, I bought a PlayStation 4, I bought an Xbox Series S. Now I'm going to buy an X. I'm going to buy a PlayStation 5. Is that the kind of hope we're talking about here?
I think it's an expectation.
Okay.
We saw similar behavior with EA Sports College Football 25.
Hell yeah, you did.
Well, the best-selling sports video game of all time in dollar sales at this point. It tripled the lifetime
Really?
sales.
The college football game, highest game sales of all time for that game, or for dollar sales.
Of NCAA football 07 in its launch month. So this was a massive hit and actually sold boxes. This is expected to do the same, if
NCAA football sold consoles. Interesting.
not a lot more. Now, this market's different than it's been in past years. I don't think you could take a GTA 5 impact on sales of last gen consoles in 2013 and apply it to what's going to happen in 2025.
Sure.
I'm not going to say 26 because I refuse to believe it. But you could take some inferences there, and that's the belief. And when you look at the purchase intent, you look at just how many people are watching trailers, how many people are talking about this game all the time, then it's one of the games that makes you believe.
I want to know how much you believe. We have a question here that something gets kicked around a lot. Gary the Third super chats and says, how much does price point have to do with where we're at? Is $100 GTA 6 even an option?
Yeah, I agree, Water. I've said that on stream on GXG and our live stream. I agree.
That quote. Look, you don't need to price a game at $100 as a base price.
Yeah, the standard edition I'm telling you, Rockstar would get so much credit, right? The industry would hate them, but they would get so much credit if they didn't even charge 70. They came out and charged 60 because they know they're going to sell it like crazy. But obviously they're greedy and they want to sell it for 70 right? But the standard edition, if they came out with a standard edition, $60 Grand Theft Auto, holy Christ, the industry would cry and the gamers would all hail them and be like, why can they charge $60 and you guys are all charging 70? That would be such a slap in the face. But obviously they're not going to. It'll be 70. But the all the other editions, the silver, the gold, the platinum, whatever the hell they fucking call it. Okay, that's going to sell for $100, $120, $200, whatever it is.
What's happened over the last few years are gold editions, silver editions, deluxe editions,
The
collector's
Bloodline
editions.
edition. Let's go, WWE.
Yeah, that's it.
All of those are driving the launch sales price well above $60 or $70 already. And you're not forcing consumers into doing that. And they've received absolutely no pushback on it. So I don't know. Could they do it? They could, sure. They could do anything they wanted. Do they need to? I don't think so. But here's, all right, make it a little technical. I hope you don't mind.
Please.
What we have in this market now is we have a market where, especially on the console side, it's becoming a little bit older and a little bit more affluent than it had been even at the beginning of the pandemic. What we're seeing is that, you know, people who are a little less affluent, a little younger, they're choosing things like PC and mobile more than they had in the past. These are
What's that, Matt? What's that? What did you just say? Mobile and PC? Younger people are choosing mobile or PC. Interesting.
easy access devices, and they're playing games on them that are a little bit more accessible from a cost standpoint. It's the older, more affluent folks that still have the funds and money available to really invest in these, especially in the big console games, especially at launch. So what we're seeing is very strong day one performance for big games at super premium price points, including things like collectors and deluxe and silver editions and all that. And then we're seeing extended strength at lower price points.
Okay.
But you know, the time we're going from the very high price point to the lower price point is compressing versus what it had been in the past. Like we're seeing deals more quickly, we're seeing price drops more quickly for a lot of titles, but that's not really hurting the overall spend. So, long-winded way of saying that people who are day one buyers are more willing to spend a higher price. People who are not,
of course, keeping up with the Joneses and stuff. People that want to buy $70, that's a smaller portion of the people that are going to buy it for cheaper later.
day one buyers just have to wait a little while. And I think that's kind of what we're going to see. But there's going to be more options for pricing, more ways to enter. And I think, you know, we're seeing that already, whether that's, you know, a game starting premium and going to subscription service, or, you know, discounting or price drops. Like you're seeing more flexibility in the pricing approach. And that's really, I think, what we're going to continue to see going forward, except for Nintendo, because they kind of do their own thing.
Of course. I want to venture
Crazy Uncle Nintendo.
in a little deeper on what you're talking about here with household incomes in video game consoles. You had a thread that I really appreciate on Valentine's Day. It wasn't romantic. I went this way. High-income households are becoming a bigger part of the U.S. console hardware market. 49% of U.S. video game console buyers during Q4 2024 had a household income of at least $100,000 a year. This is a record high, beating the 48% seen in Q4 2021.
I'm in the 51 percentile. I'm not in the 49 percentile. I'm in the 51 percentile of below $100,000.
This group accounted for only 29% of video game hardware purchases in Q1 2020. You go on. 45-plus-year-old buyers accounted for 45% of the U.S. console purchasers during Q4 2024, also a record high. Under 44-year-old buyers made up 55% of the console purchasers in the quarter, a record.
During Q1 2020, under 44 made up to 69% of purchasers, with 31% being 45 plus.
Low. During Q1.
Well, in 2020, that's 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I was 41, so I was in that 69 percentile, I guess.
2020, under 44s made up 69% of purchasers, with 31% being 45 plus. Console buyers, y'all are getting old, but at least you seem to be making more. So you have that going for you, which is nice.
Well, of course. Of course.
And I like this end point. If any enthusiast board reads this and gets mad for some reason, please know that you are indeed going to live forever, and nothing in gaming is ever going to change from what you want it to be. Parentheses, which is whatever gaming was when you were 12. You're welcome. Well said.
Sorry about that.
No, that's great. That's what I'm talking about. This is why I love following you on Blue Sky. You have so many great stats and so many little jokes like that about that. This is great. People are making more money and they're choosing the right thing. Console, I love that. I'm old. I of course choose console. I just want it to work. I love it. I love that for that reason. And I love my Steam Deck, and that's a conversation for a different time. My question, when you look at the stats and you're seeing, 49% of U.S. video game console buyers during Q4 24, at least $100,000 or more. When you're talking about GTA and you're talking about Switch 2 and you're talking about the year in general, how are you also accounting for what I would call hard times? Eggs cost a lot. Gas is still really expensive.
I have a question. If a person's complaining about eggs going up in price, they're paying a couple bucks more for eggs, but they're okay of throwing $700 at a video game console? I'm confused. Someone's going to complain about going up $5 on eggs, but they're not going to complain about putting $700 towards a thing.
We're about to tariff the shit out of everything. Like, we're not in a great place with the U.S. economy, and it seems like it's going to get remarkably worse. How do you then bring that into forecasting video games?
Excuse me.
It's become much more difficult, to say the least. The known unknowns are piling up, and whether you're a fan of the administration or not, you have to admit that they love chaos.
Sure.
And from day to day, you never quite know what you're going to get. So that's part of the baked in uncertainty that we're seeing. Now, you're absolutely right.
Right, Krebsy?
Right. Things are not great all over. We have basically a split happening where,
doom and gloom.
The more affluent, the more wealthy you are.
You know what this shows me? That these people, Matt looks older. He looks like my age, or whatever, if not older. Okay. Does he forget the times when he was younger, a young adult, or even a younger kid, of the stuff that went through the world? You know what I mean? Like these people pretend that it's like none of this stuff that happens outside of gaming has ever happened before, right? Like I'm so confused. Like, all of this stuff has happened before, while gaming was evolved from the 80s to today.
We're seeing no slowdown at all in their spending. They're buying everything, and they're buying a lot. People on the who are not quite as affluent, they're being forced to make extremely difficult choices, and those choices are getting more difficult all the time. What
extremely difficult? Okay, they're getting outside of gaming here. Look, if I have to choose on buying food or video games, I mean, obviously I'm going to buy a video game. No, seriously, I'm going to buy food. Do you know what I mean? Gaming is a luxury item, like boating, right? Like it's not an essential, as GameStop would let you think it. Like you would buy food over video games. I would buy food for the family before I bought Grand Theft Auto 6 if I was hurting that bad.
What we've seen in the U.S. over the last 2 years is a distinct shift in terms of the number or the percentage of a wallet, meaning, what portion of a person's income is going to different spending areas. We're seeing a distinct shift towards food and
yeah. Tell that to your wife. Hey, honey, I was thinking of extending the house or buying a PlayStation and Game Pass and a new PC. See how that works out for you. See how that works out for you in the adult world.
Everyday spending essentials like housing, and away from what we call general merchandise categories, which are those areas of discretionary spending, things like clothing, video games, all of those beauty products, all of those things where you have to make a decision. It's not something you have to buy. You can kind of choose or not to. And people are putting off purchases of things like apparel because they're being forced to spend more on things like food. Depending on what happens here, we could see that really kick in even more.
I can't even handle this, right? Because thinking in my head, right? Someone's sitting there going, I gotta pay $7.50 for eggs. $7.50. You get home, you're like, here's your goddamn $7.50 eggs. You put it down, you're like, $22 cosmetic skin. Oh, bye. Like, what? What are we talking about here?
Or which would apply a significant amount of pressure on our categories and could, really push a lot more people to those free-to-play, easy entry options because you just couldn't afford to do anything else. And I don't know I really don't know what's going to happen next. If anyone does, good for you. But it's a little scary is probably a fair way to put it.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at things like food prices.
Doom and gloom.
And just where the dollars are going, because people are just need to spend there. They need to eat.
Of course. Yeah, I think discretionary spending has always been a concern. I remember when COVID did pop off, and I remember running a business that is so crowdfunded. You know what I mean? Obviously, we do ads, we do sponsorships, we do a million appearances, and blah blah blah. But it's like Patreon, getting the membership now on YouTube and Apple and Spotify is such a core pillar of us that for me, I was like, oh man, like
exactly, Krebsy, right? Krebsy says, I'm poor. Here's my $2,000 new phone, my $500 outfit, $150 makeup. Why don't I have any money? Yeah.
People are going to lose their jobs. This is what's going to happen. Blah, 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 blah. I thought discretionary spending on video games. I thought people would tighten the purse strings, right? When it was actually the opposite. People were home. Video games boomed. Our audience boomed as well because suddenly you didn't have that free time. And then we've seen it since then. We've already talked about on the video game front. Okay, then it comes down. We've hit the ceiling. Blah, blah, blah. Same thing with us. And so you get into this thing now of like not knowing what the next day is going to bring and what 6 months from now everybody's bank account looks like. As eggs still cost $1 gajillion. Like you wonder what is going to get cut. And there was a question that went through the chat from Terrence and said, Matt, do you think video games are recession proof? Because this is something people boasted a lot, right? When it was all going south.
Oh.
Couple years ago.
Yeah, I mean, Bobby Kotick said that back in 2008 when Guitar Hero was flying high, and he said it in a Forbes article, and it was wrong then, and it's wrong now. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And it turned out that Guitar Hero wasn't either.
Yeah.
It just happened to hit at the very right time. Now, is the category as susceptible to changes driven by this type of thing as other categories? You could argue not. Certain areas of spending are certainly going to be hit worse than something like
This is the problem with the companies thought because everyone was stuck in the house, they're like, oh, it's recession proof. Everyone's buying video games. Yeah, because they were bored and they couldn't do anything. They're like, yeah, I'll buy a Switch. I'll buy a game. I'll play this game nonstop. I don't have to do anything. I can just sit in my house in my pajamas and play games.
video games, especially for that 16% of the audience that really loves video games. Like, people are going to choose video games when they want to escape, when they want to feel something other than what they're feeling. And so that's always going to be there. But no, not recession proof. We are, as a category, are as susceptible to changes in the macro environment as any, especially when we're in a market like we are now, where prices are going to start shifting around dramatically, perhaps even significantly. And that's going to add shocks to the market, and people are going to have to react in the ways they're going to react. We're in, I think, uncharted territory in a lot.
All I hear out of all this doom and gloom about, I don't even think they got into tariffs yet, but I'm sure he is, right? Tariffs, rising prices, cost of stuff. You know who looks really good in this? Streaming services, right? I can't afford that $70 game, but I can afford a $20 a month, right? I can afford a $20 a month subscription if it's PlayStation Plus, if it's Xbox Game Pass, if it's Ubisoft Plus, if it's EA Play. Like, that sounds much more appealing, doesn't it? I still have to play video games. Right? Because you're addicted. So, and if you don't have the money, you're going to find a way. If that's sharing with your friends, if that's you buy one game, your friend buys the other, and you share it across the thing. If you share your subscription model, whatever it is, or you get Game Pass, or you get PlayStation Plus, or you get Ubisoft Plus.
A lot of ways.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to see what happens, because I don't even know if anyone really fully knows what is going to come down the pipe. So, we just have to wait and see.
And this is what makes this next question impossible to answer. So I'm just looking for your prognostication on this one, right? But like, with the constant threat of tariffs and this, that, and the other, and da-da-da-da.
There it is.
Do you think Nintendo is sweating that with Switch 2? Is that something they would they be willing to eat the cost on and not raise from what the price point they want to, or are they just going to do it? Like, what do you think about all that?
It's tough to say.
Yeah.
I don't have any, inside knowledge of that. Obviously, they're doing a lot of work around it, as is everyone. I talk to publishers and retailers all the time. This has come up. The price point questions come up a lot. Like, where do we price games? How do we react? My advice that I've been giving to publishers is, if you're selling a physical good, maybe have, a little bit more on hand in your.
Yeah, you put more in your warehouse. You prepare and prep. And if the tariffs, let's say, take effect in July, well, then you get your shipments in and overseas before they come in, before the tariffs rise, right? And if you can't do that, well, then, isn't that funny how Sony shipped, not sold, okay, an additional 10 million units of PlayStations the last quarter, got it in before the shift of the presidency, because they knew the tariffs were coming in. So those products are already in the States. So they don't get charged the tariff because the tariff wasn't on there yet. So they have the 10 million units of extra PlayStations sitting in these warehouses, sitting in these console stores and stuff. So when it comes in, you know, they don't have to pay the tariffs, but they'll raise the prices. They'll raise the prices.
Warehouse right now than you would normally otherwise have. Be sure that you're communicating to folks that you're doing everything you can to maintain availability and, you know, to maintain a good price point. But, you know, it's one of those things where everyone's kind of waiting to see what happens. You have your scenario plans and you have to react because you just never quite know what's going to happen. So I have no idea what they're going to price at. I don't know, you know, if they even know at this point because, you know, a lot of these things are still happening. So it's extremely difficult to say. I mean,
you know who can't charge for tariffs? Game Pass. No tariffs there. It's just the digital good of you paying for your monthly subscription.
Hopefully it's nothing.
Yeah.
You know, if it is something, then, you know, everyone's going to have to react. I mean, Acer has already announced that they're lifting the prices of their PCs, driven by the tariffs on the China market. And, you know, that's just one of those things we're going to have to ride the wave on a little bit.
I feel like with this looming threat that no one can really nail down yet, this question becomes like too.
You remember the last time? This has just happened just 5 years ago when the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series S and X, same conversation was happening about when Trump was in office and the tariffs of the machines were going to go up. The exact same conversation happened 5 years ago.
Two timelines. But we're talking about the youth with their tablets, their PCs.
People don't remember, but Pepperidge Farm remembers. I remember.
The olds like me with our consoles and blah, blah, blah. A conversation that is continually happening is how much longer will consoles be around? When I was at IGN, you know, I mean, literally 18 years ago, we were like, oh, well, what, you probably got a PS4 generation and then it's over. Like, will it actually?
Doom and gloom. Doom and gloom. No, consoles will always be here. They will never go away 100%. There'll always be, there's always a record player. Okay. It's still going to be here.
And we've seen such crazy success throughout. One of your Blue Sky posts, PlayStation 5 has been the bright spot for the console business in recent quarters. Interesting tidbit from today's results, and these were from February 13th. The U.S. accounted for approximately 30% of the PS4 unit sales through December 2017 and 33% of the PS5 unit sales through December 2024. PS5 is currently 7% ahead of PS4's U.S. unit sales price. What is your prediction on the future of video game consoles? And then
you could be ahead of your projecting. It's still going to hit a saturation point, which it's hit the last 25 years.
Of course, I'd love to hear the alternate take of tariffs do roll in and things get crazy. Is this the kick in the ass to everybody going digital, going every screen's an Xbox in the same way it was in 2020 of COVID, of you just play games, you know, buy a system, you're at home, blah, blah, blah.
So if the console market itself has been relatively stable for many years. So it goes up and down. It's cyclical. New consoles come in, it goes up. Consoles get old, it goes down. It peaked in 2008.
Consoles peaked in 2008. I thought consoles were selling better than ever.
2008 was the year that console hardware sales peaked. And
I love when we look at data and people come in and tell me all the time, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Consoles are not going down. They're more popular than ever. Uh-huh. Okay, cool.
Ever since then, it's been a mature market.
Yeah.
So, you know, what I think is going to happen, pending any significant shocks to the system, you know, I think we continue to get...
Again, mature market, for those who don't understand, a mature market is that it's a slow growth where they were doing this and now they're not doing this. They're doing this. Okay? It's slowly growing, but it doesn't mean it's growing fast. Okay? It means it's at almost a saturation of that market. Hence why the market says, where can we make more money from? Yes, we can make more money by putting it on mobile devices. We can make more money by putting it on PC.
New boxes that let people play their shiny new games on their shiny displays. I don't think that changes. What I do think changes over time is the flexibility of those devices. We are seeing diminishing returns on graphical fidelity. You know, going from PS1 to PS2, you could sure see it.
Oh, yeah.
Going from PS4 to PS5, a little bit more difficult.
Gee, he's saying, oh, we're also getting diminishing returns in graphics and stuff. Who said that before? Not this guy. Not this nobody on YouTube.
Except for, you know, the sickos in the chat. You know, pixel count digital foundry videos.
I need the reflections in my puddles.
I need to see the puddles.
Yeah. But generally we're seeing diminishing returns there. So what I think happens is I think, the Steam Deck and the Switch have provided a, path towards, more hybrid devices that can display excellent quality on a screen, but also be able to take in remote, all kinds of different ways of adding flexibility to those devices. But I still think people are going to want to hook up a new box to play new games on their new displays. Now, in the shorter term, if we get 50% tariffs, I don't see how that doesn't have an impact in where people decide to play, at least in the short term. But that's a
short term would also make long term, right? Let's just say the tariffs come in and all of a sudden it's doom and gloom. And everyone's like, well, I'm not buying the console. I am going to get Ubisoft Plus and play Assassin's Creed for the next year. Or I'm gonna get EA Play and play the sports games. Or I'm getting Game Pass. Or I'm getting PlayStation Premium, whatever, right? The longer they play on there, right? This is why they give it at a lower cost, either free or $1. Because as you build up your library, as you play games and you're like, oh, wow, this game's on here. And then you play that game and you keep moving it. That's what it is. So you give them the free sample and they're like, oh, you know what? I thought this was worse than what it was. But now that I have it, it's much more convenient, right?
an extreme case. And,
Sure.
and you know what? We've never seen it before and we don't know what'll happen. But you have to imagine that people are going to adjust their spending behaviors and their patterns given significant changes in price. Like that's just kind of human nature. I hope we don't see it. I really do, for all kinds of reasons.
Oh yeah.
But it would just be it would be unfortunate.
I feel like this is in this vein of questioning, but we can take away the negative part of like what could happen tomorrow. Instead, we'll talk about give me your February 20th, 2025 read on Xbox Game Pass and Xbox's strategy. Like, what are we seeing there in terms of growth, in terms of success? I have a question about how Game Pass goes into your whole algorithm, but we'll get to that in a second. Right now, February 2025, where are we at with Xbox Game Pass from your vantage point?
All right.
Why does he look like if he says something, he's gonna be like he's gonna have a heart attack?
Let me put this in a way
Like very nervous. He knows something.
that doesn't get me a phone call. All right. So the
see
Xbox strategy, right, has been evolving. Clearly, they've been talking about the change in strategy. We went from a Game Pass first initiative to now we want to provide content to everyone everywhere. That's a pretty significant shift. I don't think those changes are anywhere near done. I think what happened. So, all right. So Call of Duty Black Ops 6 going to Game Pass was that was pushing in all the chips, right? That was making the big bet. I think the results from that are mixed. We did see an increase in folks subscribing. We saw really healthy, like fantastic sales across platforms. Xbox sales for Call of Duty Black Ops 6, you could tell a difference because it was available on Game Pass. Of course you could. But it didn't hurt sales on PlayStation at all.
Sure.
And it didn't really help sell Xbox Series consoles. So
Stop. I'm gonna stop you there. It wasn't supposed to sell Xbox consoles. Xbox loses money on each console they sell. So hence why they put it on Game Pass, because they're trying to get Game Pass numbers up. And they didn't lose money off PlayStation, and that's a win. They're not trying. Why is it so hard for these analysts to understand that Xbox is not trying to sell consoles? They're trying to sell the brand of play where you want. So if you buy it on Xbox, cool. If you play it on PC, cool. If you play it on Game Pass, cool. If you want to buy it, cool. I don't understand.
bit of a mixed bag there. Now, their overall results that
He literally, I'm going to back up. He literally said that subscriptions went up. They didn't lose any sales on PlayStation, but they didn't sell any Xbox. Okay? So their analysts probably went, yeah, we're not going to sell very well on console for Xbox. And they went, okay, cool. So what's the percentage of people that would have bought it on Xbox but are now playing on Game Pass? And out of the people that came over to Game Pass, how many people are going to stay on Game Pass?
to find new avenues. So in that,
What happened?